الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على عبد الله ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Just bearing in mind that we do have the sister side switched on today, in case you get any news of it not working, you can just let me know during the class and we'll fix it, because sometimes things break down. So we have Surah Ar-Rūm بإذن الله تعالى, and then onwards from there inshallah. فتفضل يا عبد الرحمن.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم اغفر لنا ولشيخنا وللمستمعين ولجميع المسلمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. قال الله تعالى بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألف لام ميم. ألف لام ميم.
نعم.
غلبت الروم. The Byzantines have been defeated.
نعم. Ar-Rūm is a word for generally that entire region of what was covered by the Roman Empire, including Europe, including what is now maybe Greece and the Mediterranean. In those sort of areas, the people from it would be called Ar-Rūm. But here it refers to the Byzantine Roman Empire, not to the Western Roman Empire, which had its, in terms of Europe and things like that, but it refers to the Eastern Roman Empire, or is called the Byzantine Empire. And there were two major superpowers at the time. The surah is Makkiyah. There were two major superpowers at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and that was the Persians, Al-Furs, and Ar-Rūm, the Byzantines. These were the two major superpowers. And these two superpowers, they had obviously, as happens, they had wars going on between them. And this surah tells us that they were defeated. They were defeated by the Persians. Now, to bear in mind, the Eastern Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, was an empire that was a Christian empire. It had belief in the Torah and the Injil. And the Persian Empire, they were Zoroastrians. They worshipped fire, and they worship two gods, the god of light and the god of dark. So the surah, the reason it came down is because the pagans of Mecca were very happy to see the Romans defeated, because to them it was a victory for shirk over tawheed. وَإِنْ كَانَ فِيهِمْ مَا فِيهِمْ, whatever they had from shirk, no doubt whatever they had, the Romans had in terms of issues. And like for the pagans of Mecca, it was a victory for idol worship, that the Romans were defeated.
في أدنى الأرض وهم من بعد غلبهم سيغلبون. In the nearest land, but they are, after their defeat, will overcome.
Now, the nearest land means that they were not defeated in the entire empire. The empire was not overrun. But what was overrun is the nearest land to the Muslims, which was Asham, Syria and Iraq and the Levant, those places. That was the nearest land, where the land that was nearest to the Muslims. Sham, Syria and Jordan and Palestine, and also Iraq. So that is where they were overcome. So the pagans in Mecca took this as a victory for idol worship. Finally we have shown that idol worship will be victorious over Tawheed and over people who believe in prophets and so on. But they will overcome. So here comes the miracle that came in the ayah, that Allah Azza wa Jal told that the Romans would once again conquer them. And that the Romans would once again be victorious over the Persians.
في بضع سنين لله الأمر من قبل ومن بعد وَيَوْمَئِذٍ يَفْرَحُ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Within 3 to 9 years, to Allah belongs the command before and after, and that day the believers will rejoice.
Now, so here, first of all, the defeat, according to the clear Qur'an, and I trust that the date is accurate, 614 in the Christian era. And the defeat took place in 614 according to the CE, according to the Christian calendar. And it was a comprehensive defeat. But Allah Azza wa Jal told that fi bid'i sinin, bid'a is a word used for 3 to 9. In 3 to 9 years, the Romans will once again be victorious. And they say, Wallahu alam, that the day of the Roman victory was the Battle of Badr, the same day as the Battle of Badr. They say that, Wallahu alam, it's mentioned in the books of history, that it was the same day of the Battle of Badr, was the same day that the Romans defeated the Persians. And everything is in the hands of Allah Azza wa Jal. The decree of Allah, whether before and after defeat and victory, all of it is in the hands of Allah. As for the rejoicing of the believers, As-Sajdah rahimahullah ta'ala, he says that they will be rejoiced by their victory over Persia, even though both of them are kuffar. However, some evil is less than others, and this wallahi is a fa'idah, azima jiddan, from the surah. How can the Muslims be happy with the victory of the kuffar? The Romans are kuffar. Bila shak, the Prophet ﷺ is alive, the Prophet ﷺ is preaching his message. Those Byzantine Romans are disbelievers. How could the believers be happy? Because the reality is that kufr is not of one level. And people are not to be put on one level. Rather, to see idol worship be defeated by people who believe in Isa and believe in Musa and believe in the Torah and the Injil, no doubt their shar is ahwan, is less than the idol worshippers. And we've already heard that the worst enmity of the Muslims, who has the most enmity towards the Muslims? لَتَجِدَنَّ أَشَدَّ النَّاسِ عَدَاوَةً لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Who are the two people that Allah mentioned has the most enmity for, like the most hatred for the Muslims? Al-Yahud وَالَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا. The Jews and the people who worship the idols. So to see people who follow any Christianity victorious over a people who worship idols, by the nas of the Qur'an, the ones who follow Christianity are aqrab, they're closer to you than the ones who worship the idols. And it was a victory because it also set back, and it was in the maslah of the Muslims. For there's two things. One great benefit is the benefit, as Sa'idi mentions, that ba'du shar ahwan min ba'd. You cannot put all evil on the same level. Some evil is greater than others. That's the first great benefit. The second is that the Muslims look at the non-Muslims in terms of the maslahah of the Muslims and Islam. What benefited the Muslims was for the Romans to be victorious. Because even though later on those Muslims would go and fight those same Byzantines in the Battle of Tabuk and what happened with Khalid ibn al-Walid, many times they clashed and they fought each other. Like in that time, strategically, the benefit for the Muslims strategically was for the Romans to win the battle. Because ultimately what it did is it broke the hearts of the pagans in Mecca. It was like a double defeat for them. Imagine they have the Battle of Badr, and then all this time they've been so happy to see idol worship finally getting a hold in Ashab, except all of it falls. On one day they suffer the worst defeat, and Quraysh suffer the most humiliating defeat. And then on top of that, their cousins in idol worship on the other side of the world suffer a humiliating defeat at the hands of the Romans. And that defeat is prophesied in the Qur'an. There's no doubt that in matters of international relations and matters of dealings between countries, there is a fiqh to it, no doubt. And that's what I want you to take from this. And sometimes we live a very simplistic, very childish kind of understanding of global relations. And we live very, very simplistic and sometimes very childish, you hear from Muslims. And you realize the reality is that in these matters, بَعْضُ الشَّرِّ أَهْوَنْ مِنْ بَعْضٍ. Some evil is less than others. And some things are strategically in the interests of the Muslims for any certain of the non-Muslims to have a victory against others among them. Otherwise, if it's a battle between Islam and Kufr, there is no issue of choosing sides here. It could take a person outside of Islam. In fact, if a person was happy with a Christian victory over the Muslims, كَفَرَ بِاللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. He's a kafir, murtad, he's an apostate. If he's happy to see Christianity be victorious over Islam, he leaves Islam. And he has ridda, he's apostasy. He committed apostasy. Like when the kuffar fight each other, قَدْ يَفْرَحَ الْمُؤْمِنِ. The believer could be happy by the fact that some of the non-Muslims are fighting each other. And maybe some of them are more in our interests for certain to dominate over others. But there's no doubt, for example, and I'm not going to, I don't want to get into modern diplomatic relations. Like, if you look at the wars going on in the world between the non-Muslims, there is no doubt that some of the sides are much more tolerant of Islam than others. So, let's take any battle between two non-Muslims going on in the world. The Muslims have got no yad in it at all. No, it doesn't affect any Muslim at all. Like one of those sides has got a much softer, more tolerant approach to Islam, and one of them has a much harsher and much more severe approach towards Islam. Why would we not be happy to see victory for the one who has a more tolerant and a more softer approach to Islam? Or yurja minhum al-Islam, we hope for them to have Islam. And from this also is the statement of the Prophet ﷺ in the praise of the Romans. The Prophet ﷺ praised them for one thing. Do you remember what he praised them for? The kuffar, you can't praise them generally. Like, you could say a specific thing about them. They are quick to recover from defeat. And when they get defeated, they're very quick to pick themselves up and recover. They're not a people who, when they get defeated, it takes them hundreds of years to come back again. They get defeated, in 20 years later, they're back, back in the game. This is a praiseworthy attribute of them, in that limited sense. It doesn't praise their kufr, like in terms of their customs and behaviors and mannerisms. One good thing they have is that they are quick to stand back up after they got defeated.
بنصر الله ينصر من يشاء وهو العزيز الرحيم. In the victory of Allah, He gives victory to whom He wills, and He is the exalted in might, the merciful.
Here again, there's a very important point. How can Allah Azza wa Jal give victory to a kafir? The kuffar, لا يفلحون. Never ever will they be successful. Like here, there's a great benefit, and Shaykh al-Islam, he has a lot of discussion about it, that sometimes Allah Azza wa Jal may give victory to a group of people who have a lesser evil than another. And that victory should not be used as a dalil for the validity of their belief. Where does this come into importance for the Muslims with regard to Ahlul Bid'ah, the people of innovation? فعلى سبيل المثال, throughout history, there have been times where the people of innovation have fought and have gained a big victory against someone worse than them. So against someone worse than them. And that victory can be a pleasure to the Muslims, وَلَوْ كَانُوا مِنْ أَهْلِ الْبِدْعَةِ, even if they're from the people of innovation. And Shaykh al-Islam speaks about this. For example, does the fact that Salah ad-Din, rahimahullah ta'ala, rahmatan wasi'ah, that he was rahimahullah ta'ala Ash'ari, no doubt. And he was, in blood and flesh. He was Ash'ari to the end. And that aqeedah is a false aqeedah. It's a wrong aqeedah. It has wrong beliefs about Allah. Does that mean that we should not be happy to see Salah ad-Din, his victory in Sham and in Palestine and Al-Quds? لا شك. There's nothing to say that Allah Azza wa Jal will not help a people, even if that person doesn't necessarily have the correct belief. صحيح؟ لا يستدل بذلك. You can't say because Salah ad-Din got a victory that means that Ash'ari Aqidah is correct. صحيح? Does that make sense? For this is from the fawaid you can take from this. بِنَصْرِ Allah gave nasr to a people فيهم ما فيهم. They have mistakes, they have calamities in them. Lakin Allah gave them a nasr over a people that were worse than them. The point is, you cannot use that to justify Christianity. You cannot now say that Christianity is the correct religion because the Romans overcame the Persians. But likewise, you cannot also justify that a group of the innovators who got a victory against the kuffar or against people that were worse than them, against the Rafida, for example. And there's nothing to say that the Muslims cannot be happy with that, and there's nothing to say that validates their belief that they personally had. Now, that is an important point to keep in mind, because this is one of the very strong shubahat that the people use, that they will bring, and all of them bring it. And this is from the dalil. If you look, if one of those groups was correct, for example, if we said the Ash'ari every single time they got victory and no one else did, you can speak about it. Like, in the reality is, all of the, for example, the spread of, let's take a group all of us agree are upon misguidance. The Batini Shia. They're so misguided that the Rafida consider them kuffar. If you want to know how bad these people are, the Rafida consider them kuffar. The Ithna Ashariya consider them kuffar. They had a time where they ruled the majority of the Muslim world. Vast swathes of the Muslim world were under their command. The Fatimiyun, the Ismailiyya, Al-Batiniyya, Al-Kafara. And nobody doubts, there's not a single second of doubt that these people are kuffar qawlan wahidan. There is not a single view that these people are Muslims. Rather, they are kuffar qawlan wahidan. The Ismailiyya, the Batiniyya. Hatta before, maybe not now, but like before the Rafida, كانوا يكفرونهم. The Rafida used to say these people are extreme. They had a time when they had massive amounts of the Muslim world was under their command. So you cannot use that as a dalil for sihhat al-aqidah, that their aqidah was correct. That's why Allah gave them victory. Rather, lillahi al-amr min qabl wa min ba'd. Allah gave victory to Persia over the Romans in the beginning by His qadr. And Allah Azza wa Jal gave victory to the Romans over the Persians by His qadr. وَكِلَاهُمَا كُفَّارٌ. And both of them are from the kuffar. فَذِس is يُتَنَبَّأ لِذَلِكَ.
وعد الله لا يخلف الله وعده ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون. It is the promise of Allah. Allah does not fail in His promise, but most of the people do not know. يعلمون ظاهرا من الحياة الدنيا وهم عن الآخرة هم غافلون. They know what is apparent of the worldly life, but they of the hereafter are unaware.
The promise of Allah is the promise of Allah to defeat the Persians at the hands of the Romans. They know what is apparent. That is the nature of the kuffar in general. Well, sadly, whoever follows them in that. That in reality, the kuffar, what they know is, they know ظاهرا من الحياة الدنيا. They know a lot about the world. You get scientists, you get doctors, you get engineers, you get people who, they know a lot about the affairs of this world. Like when it comes to the akhirah, they don't know anything. And it's a blameworthy state for a Muslim to ever fall into that, to be someone who excels in al-ulum al-dunyawiyya, the matters of this world, but doesn't know anything about the akhirah. ممكن قد لا يحسن قراءة الفاتحة. Maybe can't read Surah Al-Fatiha, like he's an engineer and a scientist. And maybe he can't read Fatiha. That's a very blameworthy. That's an attribute of the kuffar, that their nature is that they know a lot about this world, but they don't know anything about the akhirah. But that doesn't stop a Muslim having knowledge of the worldly life, but that knowledge has to be secondary to knowledge of the akhirah.
أولم يتفكروا في أنفسهم ما خلق الله السماوات والأرض وما بينهما إلا بالحق وأجل مسمى وإن كثيرا من الناس بلقاء ربهم لكافرون. Do they not contemplate within themselves? Allah has not created the heavens and the earth and what is between them except in truth and for a specified term. And indeed, many of the people in the meeting with their Lord are disbelievers.
And if a person thinks about themselves, there are so many signs in a person. وَفِي أَنفُسِكُمْ أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ. And in your own self, there are so many signs. If a person just looks at human beings, at the human self, there are so many signs for the worship of Allah Azza wa Jal, the right of Allah Azza wa Jal to be worshipped. Now, like most people are in denial of all of the signs, whether in the heavens and the earth, or the signs that are within themselves, how Allah created them from nothing, the human body, how it works, all of the intellect, the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created it, the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught us and guided us, al-hidayat al-amma, general guidance, and all of these are a sign for the people, but most of the people don't pay attention to the signs that are there calling them to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
أولم يسيروا في الأرض فينظروا كيف كان عاقبة الذين من قبلهم كانوا أشد منهم قوة وآثاروا الأرض
وآثاروا الأرض
كانوا أشد منهم قوة وأثاروا الأرض وعمروها أكثر مما عمروها وجاءتهم رسلهم بالبينات فما كان الله ليظلمهم ولكن كانوا أنفسهم يظلمون. Have they not traveled through the earth and observed how was the end of those before them? They were greater than them in power, and they plowed
and they plowed the earth now, or excavated it.
And they plowed the earth and built it up more than they have built it up. And their messengers came to them with clear evidences, and Allah would not ever have wronged them, but they were wronging themselves.
And plowed or excavated or cultivated, and they cultivated the earth and built it up far more than the people of Mecca ever did. Yet Allah Azza wa Jal destroyed them. If the people of Mecca look at the other nations, any people who carved buildings out of mountains and were destroyed, so how about the people who lived in simple structures around Mecca? And if Allah destroyed the people who used to carve their homes from the mountains? No.
ثم كان عاقبة الذين أساءوا السوء أن كذبوا بآيات الله وكانوا بها يستهزئون. Then the end of those who did evil was the worst consequence because they denied the signs of Allah and used to ridicule them.
No.
الله يبدأ الخلق ثم يعيده ثم إليه ترجعون. Allah begins creation, then He will repeat it, then to Him you will be returned.
No.
ويوم تقوم الساعة يبلس المجرمون. And the day the hour appears, the criminals will be in despair.
They will be in a state of despair, plunged into destruction. And the clear Qur'an says, dumbstruck.
وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُمْ مِنْ شُرَكَائِهِمْ شُفَعَاءُ وَكَانُوا بِشُرَكَائِهِمْ كَافِرِينَ. And there will not be for them among their alleged partners any intercessors. Alleged partners, any intercessors. And they will then be disbelievers in their partners.
In this came in which context? We've heard these ayat many times before, but you have to bear in mind the context. The context is the beginning of the surah, is that the pagans they're rejoicing over the victory of idol worship. So now all of these ayat which are coming here, they're all in the context of that. In Yawm al-Qiyamah, what will your idols do for you? And you're rejoicing because the idol worship has got a victory. Like in Yawm al-Qiyamah, what will your idols do for you? That's the context of the ayat now.
وَيَوْمَ تَقُومُ السَّاعَةُ يَوْمَئِذٍ يَتَفَرَّقُونَ. And the day the hour appears, that day they will become separated.
Into two groups, into the groups of believers, فَرِيقٌ فِي الْجَنَّةِ وَفَرِيقٌ فِي السَّعِيرِ. A group of people in Jannah and a group in the hellfire.
فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ فَهُمْ فِي رَوْضَةٍ يُحْبَرُونَ. And as for those who had believed and done righteous deeds, they will be in a garden of paradise delighted. وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا وَكَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا وَلِقَاءِ الْآخِرَةِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ فِي الْعَذَابِ مُحْضَرُونَ. But as for those who disbelieved and denied our verses and the meeting of the hereafter, those will be brought into the punishment to remain. فَسُبْحَانَ اللَّهِ حِينَ تُمْسُونَ وَحِينَ تُصْبِحُونَ. So exalted is Allah when you reach the evening and when you reach the morning.
As-Sajdah rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, this is Allah Azza wa Jalla is informing us that He is free of all deficiency, and anything that people would imagine that is deficient about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not true. And these times, حين تمسون وحين تصبحون, the time of the morning and the time of the evening, these times, they contain the time of the 5 daily prayers. So in the evening you have Maghrib and Isha, and you enter the morning with Fajr. The other prayers are mentioned, like in As-Sajdah says, all of the 5 daily prayers. This is the time to exalt Allah's mention, to praise Allah. And it's also the time of the adhkar al-sabah wal-masa, the time of the morning and evening adhkar.
وَلَهُ الْحَمْدُ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَعَشِيًّا وَحِينَ تُظْهِرُونَ. And to Him is due all praise throughout the heavens and the earth, and exalted is He at night and when you are at noon.
I think at night is the wrong word here. It's definitely the wrong word. The word here should be in the afternoon. هذا خطأ, it's not عشيًا, it's the afternoon. So here, all of the 5 daily prayers come. وَلَهُ الْحَمْدُ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَعَشِيًّا وَحِينَ تُظْهِرُونَ. In the afternoon as well as the time of dhuhr. For all of the 5 daily prayers then come in between these 2 ayat, right?
Ashiyya comes from Asha, right?
لا, عشيًا is al-ashi, إِلَّا عَشِيَّةً أَوْ ضُحَاهَا. The ashi is the afternoon. فسبحان الله حين تمسون وحين تصبحون. تمسون is المساء. المساء is the خلاف بين أهل العلم. Some of them include العصر in it. لكن المساء is going into the night at least. فالمساء includes Maghrib and Isha, and الصبح is Fajr, and al-Dhuhr is mentioned, and also al-Ashi, and the Salat, Ashi is Salat al-Asr. For here is another ayah where all of the 5 daily prayers are mentioned, this time mentioned in the praise. The second ayah mentions the praise of Allah Azza wa Jalla in the heavens and the earth. For the salah is a mixture of, from this is the dalil, the salah is a combination of tasbih and hamd. Declaring Allah to be free of all imperfections and affirming His praises for His names and His attributes and His actions.
يخرج الحي من الميت ويخرج الميت من الحي ويحيي الأرض بعد موتها وكذلك تخرجون. He brings the living out of the dead and brings the dead out of the living and brings to life the earth after its lifelessness, and thus will you be brought out.
This is an evidence. It's one of the many times that Allah Azza wa Jal gives an evidence for the resurrection by what you see of resurrection of life on the earth, like dead plants that grow back to life. The fact that, and there are views about يخرج الحي من الميت ويخرج الميت من الحي. The views, some of them are in terms of the fact that Allah Azza wa Jal causes life and death. Also some of them said with regard to that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes people into Islam and out of Islam. In this ayah, it's not so clear in this ayah, but in other parts where Allah says يخرج الحي من الميت ويخرج الميت من الحي, it could encompass that meaning as well. But here it's an evidence for the resurrection. And if you see the one who causes the plants to die and come to life and people to die and people to be born, so that one is the one who will resurrect you.
ومن آياته أن خلقكم من تراب ثم إذا أنتم بشر تنتشرون. And of His signs is that He created you from dust. Then suddenly you were human beings dispersing throughout the earth.
And here Allah mentions a large number of His signs, subhanahu wa ta'ala, and of His ayat coming in this part of the surah. And from those signs is that Adam was created from turab, and now look at how far you've spread on the earth. One person was put on the earth, along with his wife Hawa, and now look at how many millions and billions of people there are on the earth today. It's an ayah min ayatillah.
ومن آياته أن خلق لكم من أنفسكم ومن آياته أن خلق لكم من أنفسكم أزواجا لتسكنوا إليها وجعل بينكم مودة ورحمة إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يتفكرون. And of His signs is that He created for you from yourselves mates, that you may find tranquility in them, and He placed between you affection and mercy. Indeed, in that are signs for people who give thought.
And from the ayat of Allah Azza wa Jal is that Allah Azza wa Jal created for you a wife from your own selves. In other words, human beings who marry human beings. And that's also is an indication that Hawa was created from the rib of Adam. And so Allah Azza wa Jal did not make that you are married to a different species or a different people, but you're married to people from your own selves. And Allah Azza wa Jal made it لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا. لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا covers two things here. One of them is not mentioned in the translation here, because لِتَسْكُنُوا means to live with them. Allah wants you to live together as husband and wife. And لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا means to find tranquility with them. So the tranquility is mentioned, but the living together should also be mentioned here, because that is also the same meaning. In fact, the verb used is to live together, but the ilayha brings the meaning of tranquility. So it's sometimes it happens in the Qur'an, a word is used with an unusual preposition. What that means is you have a verb, but instead of the normal word لِتَسْكُنُوا مَعَهَا, which would be the normal way we'd say in Arabic, لِتَسْكُنُوا مَعَهَا, Allah says لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا, to join the meaning of two words into one. So the meaning of as-sakina wal-itmi'nan, and the meaning of as-sakan wal-ma'isha, living together, as well as the meaning of finding tranquility. From the benefits the ulama mention in this word here is that the marriage should bring tranquility. And that should be the purpose of the marriage. When you go home, you should be a person that you find tranquility with your spouse and they find tranquility with you. And if that's not the case, then something is going wrong in terms of what should be. It should be like that. Now, it's not all the time people will argue, right? We heard many ayat. وَاللَّاتِ تَخَافُونَ نُشُوزَهُنَّ فَعِظُوهُنَّ وَاهْجُرُوهُنَّ فِي الْمَضَاجِعِ وَاضْرِبُوهُنَّ. We heard that there is nushuz, there are marital discord and arguments and things. Like in the overall benefit should be that you find, you have a tranquility with each other, you find peace with each other. And from it is the ulama said that this ayah contains the importance of compatibility between the spouses. That yes, you marry a woman of deen, of character, she marries a man of deen and character and all the things that are mentioned. Like there is a weight given to compatibility, because you have to find a peaceful way of living together, and that only happens by compatibility. And Allah is the one who placed between you mawadda wa rahmah. From the evidences of this is that the relationships that happen outside of a proper Islamic method and way don't bring any mawadda and rahmah. They might bring a shaghaf. قَدْ شَغَفَهَا حُبًّا. They might bring shaghaf, like what they said about the wife of Al-Aziz with Yusuf. قَدْ شَغَفَهَا حُبًّا. She's become passionately obsessed with him. لكن لا يقال mawadda wa rahmah. You don't say about a relationship that is built upon zina that it brings mawadda and rahmah. It brings a shaghaf wal ishq, but it doesn't bring real care and affection. And the word mawadda is not just love. Some of them said it's the love which grows over time. Some of them said mawadda is the love which grows over time. And others said mawadda, it is a love that encompasses care and friendship, not just al-ishq, passion, but it covers care and friendship and looking out for them. Ar-Rahmah indicates forgiving each other and letting each other's rights go, because the husband has rights and the wife has rights. Like, if the husband demands his rights every time, no doubt he will end up divorcing his wife. And if she demands her rights every time, the marriage will become sour. But you have to learn to have rahmah with each other. And there are many, many ayat in this for a people who reflect.
وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ خَلَقُ السَّمَاوَاتِ
وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ خَلْقُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ.
وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ خَلْقُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافُ أَلْسِنَتِكُمْ وَأَلْوَانِكُمْ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِلْعَالَمِينَ.
لِلْعَالِمِينَ. Be careful here about the harakat.
وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ خَلْقُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافُ أَلْسِنَتِكُمْ وَأَلْوَانِكُمْ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِلْعَالِمِينَ. And of His signs is the creation of the heavens and the earth and the diversity of your languages and your colors. Indeed, in that are signs of those of knowledge.
And all of these are from the ayat of Allah Azza wa Jal, the creation of the heavens and the earth. And from the ayat which I'll mention to you, hatta if you speak to the most educated scientist who studies the origin of the universe, they will tell you there is a point we just don't know anything about it. Like they can say, look, we have some idea of the formation of the planet, and there's a point we just don't know anything beyond that point. And that, some of that they took two views. The believers among them said, that is in the hands of Allah. Allah knows best. The others said, one day we will know. They don't. لا يوقنون. They don't have knowledge about it. If you look at the heavens and the earth, how they've been created, the fact that the sky doesn't fall down upon the earth, the fact that, I just want you to think about one thing. If you want to think about the ayat of the heavens and the earth, just one thing out of many. The conditions for life on earth, in all the planets we've seen. And I know, people live in hope, one day we'll find a planet. All the planets we've seen, for as far as the telescopes can reach and as far as the probes can go and as far as things can see, yani we've not found anything that is remotely close to sustaining life. In other words, the conditions for sustaining life are so complex, it's impossible for those to come about by random. Especially the fact that people say, no, somewhere in the universe it will be there. بَلْ لَا يُوقِنُونَ. You don't have ilm. This is just wahm, it's dhann. Yani. You're telling me somewhere in the universe I'm going to find another earth. Like it's wahm, it's dhann. Yani. You don't have any idea about it at all. You cannot point to me any single thing except dhann and wahm. And maybe we saw something that's a billion years away, and we, maybe it's possible that this could have. Like, you have not found anything where life can be sustained. The complexities, and people say if the gases in the Earth's atmosphere, just a little bit, certain things change, you will not be able to sustain life. The heat, the sun, the distance from the sun, the weather, the ocean, the presence of water, the mixture of the gases in the air, the balance of the ecosystems. Wallah, is ayat min ayatillah. Yani, to be honest, you just ask someone, okay, you believe somewhere else in the universe there is a planet that is the same as ours, and it has life and sustain and all that, because it's all random, right? According to you. كَمَا زَعَمْتُمْ. It's all random and it didn't come from creation. There's no plan for it. Just everything exploded and just randomly. Well, it's exactly like they say. If I told you I took a bag of letters, the Scrabble, that game with all the letters in it, and I threw it over my back and I made a perfectly ordered sentence, you would say to me, Wallahi kadhab. You're lying. You would say you're lying. There's no way you can take how many times you throw it. There is no way that you can take a bag of 26 letters and make a sentence by throwing it over your back. Impossible. Or so close to impossible. They say it's not impossible. Like they say it's so close to impossible. It may as well be impossible. How complex is life on this earth? And just a single hair of yours is way more complex than those 26 letters. For all this to work like that, which of the two is a more rational argument? I'm not talking about now proof, I'm just talking about rationality. Like, which of the two is a more sensible, rational argument? That this world came about randomly through an explosion of gases that just happened to organize perfect life on a planet and nowhere else that we can see? Or is it more rational to say, more likely by percentage, is it more likely to say that it was created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who knows everything in the heavens and the earth? Well, I don't think anybody can argue that this idea of randomness is more likely. My point is, look at the ayat in the universe. Wallah, you'll see so many things. And I'm not an expert. I don't know anything about physics and biology and chemistry and astrophysics and the universe and all of that, except what you just basic general knowledge. Like, wallah, everything you read and see, it actually drives you towards believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because the other way, there's takalluf, and this belief is so much takalluf to believe that this all came about by complete randomness. Until some of them, they got so much takalluf, they got so sort of locked up by this argument that some of them said the only way we can justify it, there must be infinite universes that we can't see. Some of them went to that extent. They said there's no way to explain this universe except, without God, except to say that there must be infinite universes, like there must be an unlimited number of earths, like cut throughout space and time. But I say, to be honest, is your belief more strange or is my belief? And you look at me like I'm strange. And you believe that there's an infinite number of you walking around on a planet you can't see. Afwan, which of us has a foolish belief? In the ayat, in the heavens and the earth, there are ayat. If a person looks into it, the differences in your tongues. Look at how we all came from Adam. Like, all of us look different skin color, different languages. وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. You became tribes and nations so that you may know one another. Like, all of you came from Adam. كيف ذاك? how can it be possible that people who look so different and speak all different languages all came from Adam alayhi salatu wasalam? In a reasonably short space of time. I'm not going to say like, we're not going to talk about the length of time. Like, it's not any, we're not talking like a, we're not talking billions of years here. We're not even realistically talking millions of years, صراحة, from what is dhahir from the Qur'an. As for the age of the earth, that's a different matter. When Allah created the earth, Allah knows best. Like from Adam to us, we're not talking about like an unimaginable length of time. Like each person has different features, different. For these ayat, min ayatillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala, person takes benefit. And as for the color, it's mentioned that Allah Azza wa Jal, from the hadith, that Allah Azza wa Jal took from Adam, when He created Adam, the turab, He took from all the turab of the earth. For He took from the earth, if you look at the color of earth, I'm not talking about things that don't belong to the earth, the color of earth. For you have every color. You have the white sand, you have the darkest black volcanic rock, you have red, you have yellow, you have brown, you have light, you have dark, you have the earth that you take, all the different colors of the earth. For when Allah Azza wa Jal, He created that within Adam, that would happen to Adam's children over time, that they would become different colors and different tribes and different. It's min ayatillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's from the signs of Allah Azza wa Jal. For the ulama, for the alimin, the people of ilm.
ومن آياته منامكم بالليل والنهار وابتغاؤكم من فضله إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يسمعون. And of His signs is your sleep by night and day, and your seeking of His bounty. Indeed, in that are signs for people who listen.
And there's a footnote in Muhsin Khan. It's interesting. I don't know the accuracy of it. Like there's a footnote that says that, even until now, the fact that human beings sleep is not fully, the process of sleep is not fully understood, medically. But it's a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wallah, if you know how it's like in the last 10 days of Ramadan and you get less sleep, wallah, it's a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So a person takes, subhanAllah, the way science, modern science is, wallah, I'm not shy, I'll say openly, modern science became a new religion. It became the new religion of the world. Because in reality, atheism doesn't really have any legs to it. That's reality. Atheism doesn't go very far. They needed something to be a vehicle to drive atheism forward. And they found that vehicle in the God which they worship, which they call science. And I don't say, and subhanAllah, it doesn't have to be like that. There are many Muslim scientists who have iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the world today, replaced God with science. And wallahi, it is mujarrad, it is nothing other than an issue of faith. I'll tell you why. A couple of things to think about. What is science itself? Science itself is an idea of observing something which is observable and repeatable, in investigating things which are observable and repeatable. Science itself is not supposed to be philosophical, generally speaking, right? You're supposed to look at things and measure things and, repeat them and come to conclusions about it. It's supposed to be ilmi, knowledge-based. Look at now how science has become for atheists, for people who are atheist or irreligious. It has literally become a God that you have faith in. For example, no evidence have they found, wallahi al-azim, no reasonable evidence have they found for Darwin's theory of evolution. Nothing that could stand up seriously. But instead, what do? Anyone who speaks against it, first of all, they all go against him like vultures. They just go for him. And you're discredited, you've gone against the ijma', that's the first thing. The second thing is, it's all based on hope of the future. They say, it's true, we haven't found ... But one day, I believe we will. So that's iman, It's not, that's a mas'alat iman, it's mas'alat aqeedah, it's nothing to do with science. And you went into philosophy. One day I believe we will know how the universe came about without God. One day. One day, that's how you start children's stories. That's a children's story right there. That's not real life. Once upon a time, and one day in the future. That's a children's story. That's not observable, repeatable data. That is just tamanni. Like in one day, I believe that one day we will know why human beings are like they are. One day, I believe we will know why we're the only planet that we can find that has these conditions for life. One day we will know why we're the only people who have the characteristics that we have. One day we will know. One day, taman. This is just amani. You're just hoping in something. It's not data. It's not. That's what they told them. They told them that your God now is, it's measurable. It's provable. It isn't. If you look at whenever science goes out of its field into philosophy and theology, it loses all of the reliable, provable, observable data. And it just becomes another version of philosophy. One day we hope that we will know. One day we have a belief that we will come to realize. That's not science. Then on top of that, someone could say, no, but what Darwin did was science. He observed the beak, the birds, and the beak got longer. And then he figured out everyone came from a monkey, which is a big step. Looking at the beak of a bird. It's a big step, but no problem. It was observable. The issue is, it is a theory. It is dhann. Dhann and yaqeen are not equal. Dhann is one thing. Dhann is where you guess something that you are not 100% certain it's true. ما أشهدتهم خلق السماوات والأرض ولا خلق أنفسهم. I didn't make them watch the creation of the heavens and the earth, and they didn't watch the creation of themselves. But you don't have ilm. Don't call it ilm. Call it dhann. That's what it is. It is dhann. You guessed something. You saw a bird and you guessed. You made a guess. Guessing and yaqeen are not the same thing at all. You made dhann, nothing else. You made dhann. And that dhann has all kinds of problems with it. Despite the fact that they keep telling you that everybody knows it to be true and the world of science know it to be true. And all of that. You'll see something about science also is that theories change. And I'm sure when they believed the world was flat, they did the same thing. When they believed, as scientists, that the world was flat, I'm sure anyone who said it was round, they did the same thing. The whole world of science, we all know for sure that it's flat. We are certain it's flat. How can you say this is a ridiculous statement? And then 2 minutes later, they change because it's not religion. And it's okay. It doesn't have to be. My problem is not with science. My problem is when people take science and put it into the realm of religion. Religion gives you yaqeen. The Qur'an is certainty. The Qur'an is yaqeen. There is not one single amount of doubt in it. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. For to say that somebody watching birds on an island, that their dhann, their guess or estimate is equal to the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, that itself is an unscientific way of dealing with things. So it's something to think about. And don't let people just tell you the world has agreed upon this. The whole world knows it to be true. Everyone knows. And you can keep saying that again and again and again, and it doesn't make it actually true. So you either have science in two problems you have dhann, people guessing about things they don't really know for them to be actually true, which is fine, and that's okay to make a guess about something. But when when the Qur'an comes or when the dalil comes to show you a guess is wrong, you have to step back from your guess. That's the first thing. And the second thing is getting involved in religion. And getting involved in one day we'll explain what happens to the soul to the body after death. One day we'll explain what is meant by a human conscious. One day, you're getting yourself involved in things that are not in your remit. If you were to limit yourself to, as the believers do, to listen to the Qur'an, to read the Qur'an, and then to study the matters of this dunya, and to observe, and to study, and to collect data, there would not be a problem. In fact, you would advance the way the Muslims advanced science throughout the ages. Because for them, religion and Islam was certainty. And everything else was any matters that we get it right, we get it wrong. Like now the problem is with the rise of atheism, they don't have a God and they need a God. Atheism, I'm telling you, nobody can survive as an atheist. Salahan, nobody can survive. You need a God. So they made for them a God. And that God is called science. And that was not real science, not the science the Muslims have. Like in the one that the people worship who don't have another God to worship. Allahu A'lam.
ومن آياته يريكم البرق خوفا وطمعا وينزل من السماء ماء فيحيي به الأرض بعد موتها إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يعقلون. And of his signs is that he shows you the lightning causing fear and aspiration, and he sends down rain from the sky by which he brings to life the earth after its lifelessness. Indeed, in that are signs for people who use reason.
Now, I wanted to also add, Afwan, while I haven't finished my little rant about science yet, I wanted to add a point that there were scientists themselves who clearly stated this. I've actually got quotes for you of people who said that it wasn't, when we studied these things like evolution, it wasn't that we wanted the science, we wanted freedom from morality. There are quotes like that, like a famous scientist who said, when we did this, when we pushed this forward, don't think we're pushing this forward for the benefit of human knowledge. We wanted freedom from the morality of the church or the morality of the religion. So some of them حتى صرحوا بذلك. They said openly that what we wanted was freedom from the morality of the society. That's why we pushed this forward. But some of them openly said so, and they were not embarrassed. They were not hiding it. It was not a conspiracy. They said, yeah, we pushed this forward because we wanted freedom from the morality that existed in the society. People telling you that you have to be moral and you have to be good and you have to be righteous. So we wanted a framework that would take people out of that morality and bring them to our viewpoint. For some of them even openly said so.
ومن آياته أن تقوم السماء والأرض بأمره ثم إذا دعاكم دعوة من الأرض إذا أنتم تخرجون. And of his signs is that the heaven and earth stand by his command. Then when he calls you with a single call from the earth, immediately you will come forth.
And the heavens and the earth only exist because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we've said before, Allah doesn't need the hamala of the arsh, the angels who carry the arsh, nor does Allah need the arsh, nor does Allah need anything in the heavens and the earth. Rather, all of them exist because of Him. The angels who carry the throne because Allah gives them the power to do it. The throne exists because of Allah. The heavens and the earth stand because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stops them from falling down.
وَلَهُ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ كُلٌّ لَهُ قَانِتُونَ. And to Him belongs whoever is in the heavens and the earth. All are to Him devoutly obedient. وهو الذي يبدأ الخلق ثم يعيده وهو أهون عليه وله المثل الأعلى في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. And it is He who begins creation, then He repeats it, and that is even easier for Him. To Him belongs the highest description in the heavens and earth, and He is the exalted in might, the wise.
The statement, it's easier for Him. I think that the note from the clear Qur'an is quite good. this is from a human perspective. Otherwise, everything is easy for Allah. There's nothing difficult or easy for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like an ahwan here, it's even less of a, I don't know if that's the right way to say it. It's less of a task. And it's even less than the creation of human beings the first time. And that is from a human perspective. Like if you were to look at, is it more of a task that creation is brought from nothing, or is it that they are resurrected again after they die? But there's no doubt what is ahwan, what is less complicated in terms of from our perspective, is resurrection. Otherwise, nothing is difficult for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And to Allah is the highest description, the lofty attributes, the perfect names. Al-mathalul a'la. Everything that is said about Allah is the most perfect. في السماوات والأرض. And the highest description is that no one has the right to be worshipped but Him, and there's nothing like Him in His names and attributes and actions.
ضرب لكم مثلا من أنفسكم هل لكم مما ملكت أيمانكم من شركاء فيما رزقناكم فأنتم فيه سواء تخافونهم كخيفتكم أنفسكم كذلك نفصل الآيات لقوم يعقلون. He presents to you an example from yourselves. Do you have among those whom your right hands possess any partners in what we have provided for you so that you are equal therein and would fear them as your fear of one another within a partnership? Thus do we detail the verses for a people who use reason.
And we mentioned, this has already been mentioned and discussed in Surah An-Nahl. And we discussed a similar kind of example. And that the slaves that you have, and this is an example between human beings. Like, and sometimes we, through the examples in creation, we can understand something that the Creator wants us to understand from the examples in creation. In your slaves that you have, do you have any of them that you consider them equal partners to you? That you fear them like you fear each other in terms of partnership or in terms of what you own together? And this is, they would say, there's nothing like this. They're our slaves. They don't own anything. We don't give them partnership. We don't give them right to do anything. وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى. To Allah is the most lofty attributes. How can you say that among yourselves in creation, you don't equate your slaves to yourselves, and you don't give them partnership in anything, and you don't, if they were to have a partnership with you in something, you don't give them any weight. You don't consider them to have any weight at all. رَبٌّ وَعَبْدٌ كَيْفَ يَشْتَبِهَانِ. How can you compare a Lord and His servants?
بل اتبع الذين ظلموا أهواءهم بغير علم فمن يهدي من أضل الله وما لهم من ناصرين. But those who wrong follow their own desires without knowledge, then who can guide one whom Allah has sent astray, and for them there are no helpers.
And if you want to summarize the previous example could be summarized in the statement, you don't accept partners from your slaves, so how do you expect Allah to accept partners from His slaves? That could be a summary of the argument. They're following their desires. And no one can guide the one that Allah has sent astray out of wisdom and justice.
فأقم وجهك للدين حنيفا فطرة الله التي فطر الناس عليها لا تبديل لخلق الله ذلك الدين القيم ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون. So direct your face toward the religion, inclining to truth, adhere to the fitrah of Allah upon which He has created all people. No change should there be in the creation of Allah. that is the correct religion, but most of the people do not know.
Now, be steadfast, yani have in here, فَأَقِمْ وَجْهَكَ, yani as though the reference here is istiqama, or like istiqama. Be a person of uprightness, a person who is firm and solid upon the religion. This is the fitrah of Allah Azza wa Jal. It is the fitrah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the fitrah is al-hanifiyah. And the fitrah here, As-Sajdah, he speaks about it. He says that Allah Azza wa Jal has placed into their intellects that worshipping Allah alone is something good and worshipping others besides Him is something bad. And that Allah Azza wa Jal, all of the rulings of the Sharia, Allah Azza wa Jal has placed in the hearts of the people an inclination towards them. Now here I think what's very important is the statement of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, where he says that the fitrah can guide you jumlatan la tafsila. It guides you in a general sense, but it doesn't give you details. Like from the fitrah, you don't learn how to make wudu. From the fitrah, you might say the fitrah is that I'm inclined that I should be clean for my prayer. Like that in my heart, that settles with me that a person should be clean in order to pray. Like in tafasil al-wudu, how do you make wudu? What arm do you wash first? And that doesn't come from the fitrah. That comes from the sharia, from al-wahi. But the fitrah is a certain inclination that Allah has put in a person's heart that makes them lean towards it and makes it seem good to them. But someone might say, how many of these people now, they think it's something terrible, they think that Islam is something terrible and they turn away from it. We say that these people turned away from their fitrah got polluted. And the fitrah is no doubt, nobody can deny that people have a natural inclination. Even people who don't believe in any religion have to admit that human beings have a natural inclination to believe in God. Nobody, I don't think there's a single atheist can argue that point. That human beings as a people have an inclination to it. That's why you can barely find a society on the face of the earth. In fact, you cannot find that without outside influence develops itself to be atheist. Generally speaking, people have an inclination to it. People have an inclination that when you start practicing Islam, your heart, it feels right to you. That's the fitrah. That fitrah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it something which is min al-adilla al-ijmaliyya, if that's the right word. Allah made it dalilun ijmali, something that doesn't give you the details, but it leans you towards looking into religion, looking into the Sharia, looking into Islam. It pushes you in that direction. We don't say that it gives you everything. But what it does is it pushes you in the direction of, I'm not happy, this is not right, I don't like living like this, I feel without a purpose, I need something more, I feel like there must be a God. That kind of thing. Likewise, the issue of worshipping one, which is the fitrah. Is the fitrah of a person to worship many gods or one God? No doubt the fitrah of a person is to believe in one supreme creator. They only get to many gods when they're influenced by something. But yes, there's no doubt some people are more in tune with their fitrah than others. But this fitrah is what inclines a person towards the laws of Islam. Makes a person feel good when they practice it, when they don't. It feels like it fits. That's the fitrah. And Allah has created all people. No one can, no change can there be in the creation of Allah Azza wa Jal. And He let people remain true to their fitrah within Islam. Let people remain upon their fitrah in Islam. And that is the correct religion. But most people do not know.
منيبين إليه واتقوه وأقيموا الصلاة ولا تكونوا من المشركين. Adhere to it, turning in repentance to Him, and fear Him and establish prayer, and do not be of those who associate others with Allah.
Fear Him here is have taqwa of Him.
من الذين فرقوا دينهم وكانوا شيعا كل حزب بما لديهم فرحون. Or of those who have divided their religion and become sects, every faction rejoicing in what it has.
And we spoke about this before, the dividing of the religions into groups. افترقت اليهود على 71 فرقة. The Jews broke up into 71 sects. وافترقت النصارى على 72 فرقة. And the Christians broke into 72 sects. وستفترق أمتي إلى 73 فرقة. Into my ummah will break into 73 فرقة. They will break into إلى 73 فرقة. 73 groups. كلها في النار إلا واحدة. All of them are in the fire except one. And in some of the narrations, what me and my companions are upon. The other religions are blamed for breaking up, like for the point of the Muslims not following them and breaking into groups. So we spoke about this before now.
وَإِذَا مَسَّ النَّاسَ ضُرٌّ دَعَوْا رَبَّهُم مُنِيبِينَ إِلَيْهِ ثُمَّ إِذَا أَذَاقَهُم مِّنْهُ رَحْمَةً إِذَا فَرِيقٌ مِّنْهُم بِرَبِّهِمْ يُشْرِكُونَ. And when adversity touches the people, they call upon their Lord, turning in repentance to Him. Then when He lets them taste mercy from Him, at once a party of them associate others with their Lord.
And we mentioned the shirk of the people of the past was like that, unlike the people of today.
لِيَكْفُرُوا بِمَا آتَيْنَاهُمْ فَتَمَتَّعُوا فَسَوْفَ تَعْلَمُونَ. So that they will deny what we have granted them. Then enjoy yourselves, for you are going to know.
I also find, Danny, sometimes they so that they will deny. And the footnote says, meaning let them deny. I don't see the need for that. Yani, it should stay as it is. Yani, so that they will deny. Yani, so that, like as is mentioned, yani, حَقَّ عَلَيْهِمُ الْقَوْلِ. So the decree of Allah will take place upon them because of what they did.
أَمْ أَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ سُلْطَانًا فَهُوَ يَتَكَلَّمُ بِمَا كَانُوا بِهِ يُشْرِكُونَ. Or have we sent down to them an authority, and it speaks of what they have been associating with Him?
And is there a clear proof and authority which says to them, remain upon shirk, continue upon shirk? And is this authority present with you? And so that you hold on to it so much, do you have this proof from Allah that shows to you should remain upon shirk? In such a scripture.
وَإِذَا أَذَقْنَا النَّاسَ رَحْمَةً فَرِحُوا بِهَا وَإِن تُصِبْهُمْ سَيِّئَةٌ بِمَا قَدَّمَتْ أَيْدِيهِمْ إِذَا هُمْ يَقْنَطُونَ. And when we let the people taste mercy, they rejoice therein. But if evil afflicts them for what their hands have put forth, immediately they despair.
Yeah, we've spoken also about that before.
أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَبْسُطُ الرِّزْقَ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ وَيَقْدِرُ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يُؤْمِنُونَ. Do you not see that Allah extends provision for whom He wills and restricts it? Indeed, in that are signs for people who believe.
What I find, the next ayah.
فآت ذا القربى حقه والمسكين وابن السبيل ذلك خير للذين يريدون وجه الله وأولئك هم المفلحون. So give the relative his right as well as the needy and the traveller. That is best for those who desire the face of Allah, and it is they who will be the successful.
Now, here again, the issue came about how you translate the face of Allah here. And is this referring to the attribute? No doubt Allah has a face that befits His Majesty subhanahu wa ta'ala. But is this referring to the attribute? Even As-Sa'di doesn't bring it here. He says what they're waiting for is reward from Allah. And all of the three translations either put in it approval or countenance or pleasure. That could be used as an evidence to say that it's not necessary to translate the word face here as the sifa of Allah Azza wa Jal. That could be argued, but we said we're going to bring you some research on that topic. Ala kulli hal, the face of Allah Azza wa Jal, seeing the face of Allah in Jannah is the greatest of the rewards that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the greatest of the rewards that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed for His servants. Like in here, some of the ulama, they said that it's not necessary here, it doesn't have to be the sifa of Allah Azza wa Jal here. The idafa here doesn't have to be idafat as-sifa ila al-mawsuf. It doesn't have to be a sifa of Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned here. Like in the sifa of Allah's face is mentioned elsewhere. كل شيء هالك إلا وجهه ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام. And there's no doubt about the face of Allah Azza wa Jal as a sifa for Allah. Like are these ayat about which speak ibtigha wajh Allah, looking for the face of Allah? Is it referring to the sifa? That's a matter that needs some. I'm going to bring you some research at the end of the classes, inshallah ta'ala.
وما آتيتم من ربا ليربو في أموال الناس فلا يربو.
How are you joining riban liyarbu? Is it you have riban, the tanween, and you're joining it to the lam.
وما آتيتم من ربا ليربو في أموال الناس فلا يربو عند الله وما آتيتم من زكاة تريدون وجه الله فأولئك هم المضعفون. And whatever you give for interest to increase within the wealth of the people will not increase with Allah, but what you give in zakah, desiring the face of Allah, those are the multipliers.
Zakah here, zakah or voluntary charity. Though that's what will multiply. Why is it said multiplier here? Because the word riba itself means getting a multiple, getting increase. That's what the word itself means. So what Allah says is that the riba you take, which is the riba of interest and usury and all of that, that riba actually doesn't multiply your wealth. What multiplies your wealth is az-zakah wa sadaqah. That's the true riba. يَمْحَقُ اللَّهُ الرِّبَا وَيُرْبِ الصَّدَقَاتِ. Allah put riba in sadaqah.
الله الذي خلقكم ثم رزقكم ثم يميتكم ثم يحييكم هل من شركائكم من يفعل من ذلكم من شيء سبحانه وتعالى عما يشركون. Allah is the one who created you, then provided for you, then will cause you to die, and then will give you life. Are there any of your partners who does anything of that? Exalted is He and high above what they associate with Him. ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس ليذيقهم بعض الذي عملوا لعلهم يرجعون. Corruption has appeared throughout the land and sea by reason of what the hands of people have earned, so He may let them taste part of the consequence of what they have done, that perhaps they will return to righteousness.
Here, corruption appears by the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything that happens on this earth happens by Allah's decree. But here what is being told is that the reason, the sabab Allah has made it for. Allah has not just put corruption on the earth by decree, like that. Rather, Allah has made for it asbab. And those asbab, the causes of corruption, all go back to what people's own hands have done. Sins, disobedience, the destruction of the earth and the ruining of the earth. Allah made the cause of it what people do, so that they can taste part of the consequences what they've done. They're not tasting the whole of what they've done. They're not suffering for everything they've done, but they're getting something of what they've done, so they can return. And this is the same as the ayah in Surah As-Sajdah. وَلَنُذِيقَنَّهُم مِّنَ الْعَذَابِ الْأَدْنَى دُونَ الْعَذَابِ الْأَكْبَرِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. We give them some of the lesser punishment instead of the major punishment, so that they might return to Allah.
قل سيروا في الأرض فانظروا كيف كان عاقبة الذين من قبل كان أكثرهم مشركين. Say, O Muhammad, travel through the land and observe how was the end of those before. Most of them were associators of others with Allah. فأقم وجهك للدين القيم من قبل أن يأتي يوم لا مرد له من الله يومئذ يصدعون. So direct your face toward the correct religion before a day comes from Allah of which there is no repelling. That day they will be divided.
A group of فريق في الجنة وفريق في السعير. A group in paradise and a group in the fire.
من كفر فعليه كفره ومن عمل صالحا فلأنفسهم يمهدون. Whoever disbelieves, upon him is the consequence of his disbelief. And whoever does righteousness, they are for themselves preparing.
Many the sins of a person and their disbelief come back on them. And the good that you do, you're the one who will get the benefit from the good that you do, not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
ليجزي الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات من فضله إنه لا يحب الكافرين. That he may reward those who have believed and done righteous deeds out of his bounty. Indeed, he does not like the disbelievers.
Out of his bounty, it shows that this is a grace from Allah. This is not something which is, they deserve it. Their deeds earn them the grace of Allah, the favor of Allah. Their deeds earn them the favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
ومن آياته أن يرسل الرياح مبشرات وليذيقكم من رحمته ولتجري الفلك بأمره ولتبتغوا من فضله ولعلكم تشكرون. And of his signs is that he sends the winds as bringers of good tidings, and to let you taste his mercy, and so the ships may sail at his command, and so you may seek of his bounty, and perhaps you'll be grateful.
And the mercy here is the rain, and the purpose of all of those signs is for you to be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because a person is between as-sabr wa shukr in this life, patience upon the difficulties and gratitude for the blessings.
وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا مِن قَبْلِكَ رُسُلًا إِلَىٰ قَوْمِهِمْ فَجَاءُوهُم بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ فَانْتَقَمْنَا مِنَ الَّذِينَ أَجْرَمُوا وَكَانَ حَقًّا عَلَيْنَا نَصْرُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And we have already sent messengers before you to their peoples, and they came to them with clear evidences. Then we took retribution from those who committed crimes, and incumbent upon us was support of the believers.
And to give them victory in the end. And this is a summary. Allah Azza wa Jalla tells us, we sent the messengers, they brought clear evidences. When those people disbelieved and became firm upon their disbelief, the punishment came, and the eventual victory was for Islam and the Muslims.
الله الذي يرسل الرياح فتثير سحابا فيبسطه في السماء كيف يشاء ويجعله كسفا فترى الودق يخرج من خلاله فإذا أصاب به من يشاء من عباده إذا هم يستبشرون. It is Allah who sends the winds, and they stir the clouds and spread them in the sky however He wills. And He makes them fragments so you see the rain emerge from within them. And when He causes it to fall upon whom He wills of His servants, immediately they rejoice.
And here, if a person rejoices out of iman in Allah, gratitude to Allah, they say, Mutirna bi fadlillahi wa rahmatih, the rain came by Allah's mercy. Then that's praiseworthy. But the people who rejoice because they are given something and then they worship others besides Allah when they're in other situations, and that's a blameworthy form of rejoicing.
وَإِن كَانُوا مِن قَبْلِ أَن يُنَزَّلَ عَلَيْهِم مِّن قَبْلِهِ لَمُبْلِسِينَ. Although they were before it was sent down upon them, before that in despair. فانظر إلى آثار رحمة الله كيف يحيي الأرض بعد موتها إن ذلك لمحيي الموتى وهو على كل شيء قدير. So observe the effects of the mercy of Allah, how He gives life to the earth after its lifelessness. Indeed, that same one will give life to the dead, and He is over all, He's able to do all things.
And that's an evidence that we said that shows us, as we've said before, the resurrection proved through what you see in the world. You look at the effects of the mercy of Allah. Look at how the earth comes back to life. That's the one who will give life to the dead. There's various ways that the resurrection is proven through things that you see in this earth. From them is the fact that you've seen people like Ashab al-Kahf, whose story was well known, and he coming sleeping for 309 years and then waking up. The things that any stories of people within Allah's creation, the plants, the fact that people are born and they die, and many, many different ways that we've covered so far, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows them the truth of the resurrection through that which they can see with their own eyes, or that which they already believe in.
وَلَئِنْ أَرْسَلْنَا رِيحًا فَرَأَوْهُ مُصْفَرًّا لَظَلُّوا مِن بَعْدِهِ يَكْفُرُونَ. But if we should send a bad wind and they saw their crops turned yellow, they would remain thereafter disbelievers.
And they would become ungrateful to Allah Azza wa Jal. And that's also a theme, we're told, of people, that when you're given something, you become happy about it. And when you're not given something, you start to say about Allah, why did Allah, this is unfair, why did Allah not give it to me? But this is the height of ungrateful and ingratitude.
فإنك لا تسمع الموتى ولا تسمع الصم الدعاء إذا ولوا مدبرين. So indeed you will not make the dead hear, nor will you make the deaf hear the call when they turn their backs retreating.
And the dead hear, the disbelievers, that's one view here. You not make the disbelievers hear, nor can you make the deaf hear the call, those who are deaf to the message.
وَمَا أَنْتَ بِهَادِ الْعُمْيِ عَنْ ضَلَالَتِهِمْ إِن تُسْمِعُ إِلَّا مَنْ يُؤْمِنُ بِآيَاتِنَا فَهُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. And you cannot guide the blind away from their error. You will only make hear those who believe in our verses, so they are Muslims in submission to Allah.
And the blind again are those who are blind to the guidance. That's why Allah said you cannot take them out of their misguidance. The only one you can make hear the truth are those who believe and submit to Allah Azza wa Jalla in Islam.
الله الذي خلقكم من ضعف ثم جعل من بعد ضعف قوة ثم جعل من بعد قوة ضعفا وشيبة يخلق ما يشاء وهو العليم القدير. Allah is the one who created you from weakness, then made after weakness strength, then made after strength weakness and white hair. He creates what He wills, and He is the knowing, the competent.
He's the one who's able to do all things. Allah is the one who created you from weakness. When you came into this world, you came as a child, and the child is a baby that's just born. A newborn baby is from the weakest of people. And subhanAllah, they can't even hold their head up without you holding their head for them. They can't feed themselves, they can't clothe themselves, they can't clean themselves, they can't speak. All they can do is cry. And this baby is in a state of weakness. Then look at what happens after that. That weakness becomes strength. Before you know it, that little baby becomes a strong young person who is a person of strength and a person of determination. After that, what happens to that strength? It gradually decreases to the point that it turns back to weakness again and white hair, old age. All of this is from the signs of Allah Azza wa Jal that I mentioned. So this surah has a lot of the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in it, and the signs of Allah that should make you reflect upon Allah's power and Allah's right to be worshipped.
ويوم تقوم الساعة يقسم المجرمون ما لبثوا غير ساعة كذلك كانوا يؤفكون. And the day the hour appears, the criminals will swear they had remained but an hour, thus they were deluded. وقال الذين أوتوا العلم والإيمان لقد لبثتم في كتاب الله إلى يوم البعث فهذا يوم البعث ولكنكم كنتم لا تعلمون. But those who are given knowledge and faith will say, you remain the extent of Allah's decree until the day of resurrection, and this is the day of resurrection, but you did not used to know.
Some of the ulama mentioned the reason they were misguided into saying an hour when it was longer than an hour is that how they used to lie in this world, and they were misguided in this world. So Allah Azza wa Jal does not give them guidance. Like in the people of knowledge and Iman, they say, you lived on this earth the decree that Allah willed you to live. And now this is the resurrection that you denied. But you did not used to know. And what is it that they did not used to know? You did not used to acknowledge the truth. It's not that they didn't used to know that the day of resurrection, here the ilm, what is being negated by knowledge here. What is being negated by knowledge. It's as though he's saying that ignorance continues to be your defining characteristic now and before. I love what As-Sajdah said. He said, فَلَمْ يَزَلْ الْجَهْلُ شِعَارَكُمْ. He said, ignorance hasn't stopped being the thing that you're known by. In that world, it's not that the message was not given to you, but you did not take that message. You did not make an effort to learn about it. So they had jahlun murakkab. There's two types of ignorance, right? Jahlun murakkab and jahlun basit. A jahl basit is where you don't know something and you don't know it. You say, look, well, I don't know the answer to that, but I know I don't know the answer to it. Like in jahl murakkab, you don't know and you think you do. You don't know and you think you do. And that jahl continues to be the sifa of these people. Even Yawm al-Qiyamah. That you think you knew how long you stayed on the earth, but you didn't know.
فيومئذ لا ينفع الذين ظلموا معذرتهم ولا هم يستعتبون. So that day, their excuse will not benefit those who wrong, nor will they be asked to appease Allah.
And nor will they be asked to appease Allah. They will not be asked, they will not be allowed to go back and make it right again. That's what it means, to appease Allah. They won't be allowed to go back and make it right. You need to say, Ya Rabb, send us back and we will do the right thing. That's what it's meant by appease Allah. They will not be allowed to say, Ya Rabb, send me back and I will do the right thing.
وَلَقَدْ ضَرَبْنَا لِلنَّاسِ فِي هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ مِنْ كُلِّ مَثَلٍ وَلَئِنْ جِئْتَهُمْ بِآيَةٍ لَيَقُولَنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا إِنْ أَنْتُمْ إِلَّا مُبْطِلُونَ. And we have certainly presented to the people in this Qur'an from every kind of example. But O Muhammad, if you should bring them a sign, the disbelievers will surely say, you believers are not falsifiers.
Are but falsifiers.
Oh, you believers are but.
You're nothing but. I think the word nothing, I think but here is a bit difficult to understand in English. We would say nothing but. You believers are nothing but falsifiers. And the Qur'an has, very important that you keep this idea, that the Qur'an does not just present something to you in one single way. Rather, the Qur'an presents to you in a multitude of different ways. So, for example, how many times is shirk prohibited in the Qur'an? You cannot count. I cannot count how many times shirk is prohibited in the Qur'an. But in many different ways. Sometimes directly, sometimes through examples, sometimes through telling the stories of the people from before. And this Qur'an gives you lessons over and over again. And there's a maqsad in these lessons. There's a purpose why these lessons are given again and again and again and again. A person can have no excuse for it. Nobody can say, I didn't know. So nobody can have an excuse. Nobody can say that I didn't know or I didn't understand the first time. For there's two benefits from the repetition of lessons and evidences in the Qur'an. There's two things. The first one is so people can understand. And when you didn't understand one way, you will understand the other way. And sometimes you missed something, it didn't come to you. Like in the second time, the third time, the fourth time, the fifth time, it will come to you. Any repetition, what do they call it? Repetitive learning or something like that. And the idea of just being told over and over again, and it will go. But also to show you what's important. For Allah Azza wa Jal to repeat something to you, Allah Azza wa Jal, His speech is the most valuable, the most perfect. It's not wasted. If Allah told you something over and over and over again, it's important. It's very important. And that's why we said that you can use that as a dalil. You can say that something is only mentioned one time in the Qur'an, and it's mentioned in a way that not even all of the scholars of Tafseer agree to it even being there in the first place. You cannot equate that to, for example, the prohibition of shirk, which is mentioned an innumerable number of times. So what I mean by that is, for example, we spoke about imama in the Rafida. Imama that the Rafida hold, the word imam is only mentioned 6 times. And it is only 6, Allahu A'lam, approximately 6 times is mentioned. 4 out of those, everybody, including their own scholars, agree it's got nothing to do with it. They're left with 2 things. On the day when Allah will call everyone by their imam, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنْهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا. 2 or 3 places in the Qur'an, that's what they're left with. Can you equate that with shirk, which is prohibited in nearly every other ayah? Every 2-3 ayat something comes about, don't make shirk with Allah. This is what happened to the people who made shirk with Allah. That's important to note, that someone is saying that the most important thing in this religion is only mentioned in the Qur'an once. What if someone used that against you and said, Tayyib, you people in reality say the same. We're going to say the same thing to you about Tawheed. The word Tawheed, the word Tawheed is not mentioned in the Qur'an anywhere as the word at-ta, al-waw, al-ha, ya, al-dal. We say, I'm talking about the word, call it what you want. Like in worshipping Allah alone, ibadatullah wahda is mentioned in the Qur'an more times than a person can count. Are you talking about a terminology or you're talking about the concept? The concept is mentioned in the Qur'an all the time. Like in these people who said the most important thing in our religion is imama, like in imama is not mentioned in the Qur'an anywhere. For how can it be the most important thing in our religion when it's not mentioned in the Qur'an? For one of the benefits is the repetition is to know that something is important. That doesn't mean that something mentioned in one ayah is not important, but you cannot compare something mentioned one time to something which is mentioned to you again and again and again, like Tawheed and Shirk and following the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and taqwa. They are mentioned. A person would struggle to count the number of times they're mentioned. Now we'll finish the surah. This was, I think, a few ayahs only. Or am I missing a page? We're just a couple of ayahs away from the surah.
كذلك يطبع الله على قلوب الذين لا يعلمون. Thus does Allah seal the hearts of those who do not know.
Allah seals their hearts. And that's like a person needs to understand that misguidance is in the hands of Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah Azza wa Jal misguided them. Allah sealed their hearts. حكمة منه وعدلا, out of wisdom and justice.
فاصبر إن وعد الله حق ولا يستخفنك الذين لا يوقنون. So be patient. Indeed, the promise of Allah is truth, and let them not disquit you who are not
disquiet.
Disquiet.
I think that's how you say it.
You who are not certain in faith.
And don't let them disturb you. Don't let them discourage you. Don't let them make you feel that you don't want to. This promise of Allah is true. So you can say that Surah Ar-Rūm, from the beginning of the end, in the beginning to the end, there are some themes you can take from it. One of them is Wa'adullah. Because from the very beginning of the surah, Alif Lam Mim, غُلِبَتِ الرُّومِ في أدنى الأرض وهم من بعد غلبهم سيغلبون في بضع سنين. And Allah promised the victory to the Romans, and the victory came. And the promises of Allah mentioned the resurrection, and the promises are mentioned. After that, also the ayat of Allah, al-ayat al-kawniyah, the ayat of Allah al-kawniyah in the world, and all the signs of Allah Azza wa Jal. So don't be discouraged. And the Prophet ﷺ is told, don't let yourself be discouraged or taken away by those people who don't have certainty. And we said that one of the arguments of the mushrikeen and the atheists and all these people, it's not based on yaqeen, it's based on wahm, dhann. It's not based on certainty. So that brings us to the end of Surah Ar-Rūm. We're now going to take a pause. So for the brothers and sisters watching on the live stream, it's now our Asr Salah time, more or less. Okay, Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala, amma ba'd. So we finished Surah Ar-Rūm, and now we have Surah Luqman.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alif Lam Mim. Alif Lam Mim. تلك آيات الكتاب الحكيم. These are the verses of the wise book.
We've always spoken about that as well.
هدى ورحمة للمحسنين, as guidance and mercy for the doers of good.
Now the people of Ihsan, they are the people who complete the guidance from it, because they bring what is obligatory and they bring what is recommended, and they do so with excellence. So the guidance for them and the mercy of it is completed for them because of it.
الذين يقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة وهم بالآخرة هم يوقنون, who establish prayer and give zakah, and they of the hereafter are certain in faith. أولئك على هدى من ربهم وأولئك هم المفلحون. those are on right guidance from their Lord, and it is those who are the successful. ومن الناس من يشتري لهو الحديث ليضل عن سبيل الله بغير علم ويتخذها هزوا أولئك لهم عذاب مهين. And of the people is he who buys the amusement of speech to mislead others from the way of Allah without knowledge, and who takes it in ridicule. Those will have a humiliating punishment.
And this ayah is from the clearest of evidences for the prohibition of music. And the Sahaba in general and the early generations, there was no doubt that music was included in this ayah. And nobody had, for probably you can say hundreds of years or a couple of 100 years, nobody had any doubt that this ayah referred to music. Sahih from the Sahaba are those who mentioned music, other forms of entertainment, storytellers who are paid to tell false stories, and other things like that. Because the ayah speaks about everything which misleads you away from the path of Allah from speech. Like, there was no doubt among anyone that music was included in this. And you have to understand that the prohibition of music, there is ijma' upon it. Nobody had a different view until the time of Ibn Hazm. Rahimahullah ta'ala. Ibn Hazm. Imam Ibn Hazm Andalus. Ibn Hazm is famous for taking the view that it is permissible. But my point is, there was nobody who ever held that view. This is shadhun munkar from Ibn Hazm rahimahullah ta'ala. It's a view that nobody else held ever. And it's from the غرائب of Ibn Hazm. Ibn Hazm عنده غرائب فيه غرائب في بعض فتاوى. Ibn Hazm, sometimes he brings غرائب in some of the things he says. It's well known. It's not the only issue that Ibn Hazm sometimes throws a curveball on it. Like, you cannot believe that for 100 years, nobody held a view that music is halal. No one. Not from the A'immat al-Arba'a, not from the followers of the A'immat al-Arba'a, not in any madhab, not in any view or any school of thought, anywhere. All of them unanimously agree that music is haram. The view of Ibn Hazm is shadhun munkar. It is a view that is completely an outlier. No one else held it, and it's an evil view that we don't have any respect for or give any weight to it at all. And no one gave weight to it in his time either. And he had some views sometimes, rahimahullah ta'ala, he was a great imam. Like, sometimes he would bring views that were unusual in things. For example, he has a view that the Ummahat al-Mu'mineen are better than the Khulafa al-Rashideen. Sometimes stuff like that comes out. Ajib, he has sometimes له غرائب. Sometimes he brings very unusual fatawa. After that, Ahlus Sunnah, no one held the view music is permissible. Like, who started to use it? Tawa'if min Ahl Bid'ah. Groups of the people of innovation, the Sufiya, started to use it and in their worship to get near to Allah and so on. None of this it was never a mainstream opinion. And there was never any doubt that music is included within this ayah. It refers to the singing, the dancing, the chanting, the storytelling that the Arabs used to do to distract people away from the Qur'an. And from the strangest things is that today there are people who sing and dance and all of that, believing it gets them near to Allah. And they can be divided into two groups. One of those who believe that singing is an ibadah. They started to see singing as an ibadah. Like the Sufiya, the whirling people, and they will dance around and fall over on the floor and foam at the mouth and then say that it's revelation and all of that. This the Ghulat al-Sufiya. Another group who came, and what they did is they widened inshad al-shi'r. They made the inshad of poetry very, very, they allowed music inside of inshad al-shi'r, the recital of poetry. So what they did effectively is they took the concept of reciting poetry, which is what some people call nasheed, and they brought music into it. And they said that as long as the music is reminding people or something like that. The evidences against it are very numerous and very, very clear from the Sunnah and outside. And the shubuhat people brought, wallahi, you can see it's just desires. أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَى. It's just an example of taking your desires as your God. Because there are people who brought shubuhat. They brought the story of the two girls that sang on the day of Eid. Two little girls were singing on the day of Eid when Abu Bakr came in and said, the instruments of the shaitan in the house of Rasulullah. And Abu Bakr thought it was from the shaitan. The Prophet ﷺ said, دَعْهُمَا, leave the two of them. They took from this the permissibility of singing and having a career in singing and making albums. And أين هذا من هذا؟ أين الثرى من الثريا? How are you going to compare the sand to the stars? There's no comparison between two little girls singing on Eid day without musical instruments, without any just two little girls just singing, like little girls singing on Eid day, or young girls, if not little girls, young girls. And then you compare that to what people do today in terms of anashid. أين الثرى من الثريا? How are you going to compare the sun to the stars? And people brought, they tried to weaken the hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari, where the Prophet ﷺ said that there will come from my ummah people who will declare musical instruments to be halal. And Allah will destroy them with a severe punishment. This hadith is in Bukhari. There is no doubt about its authenticity. But because Bukhari didn't narrate it in his usual form, they took it and they said this hadith is not authentic. This hadith, Bukhari brought it because he doubts its authenticity. The hadith is a hadith in Sahih. There's no doubt about it. Sahih Bukhari narrated it ta'aliqan majzuman bihi. He narrated it without connecting it to his shaykh. And in other words, he wrote it from the statements of his shaykh, the hadith from his shaykh upwards, without connecting him to his shaykh, as Bukhari does sometimes. Like he wrote it in a form that he believes it to be authentic, majzuman bihi. The issue is, wallahi, it's a non-issue, to be honest with you. Like in the ayah here is from the ayat, that is clear in prohibiting music, and that is all of the tafsir of the Salaf is around that. That the ayah came down with regard to music, singing, dancing, entertainment, storytellers, all of them, the discussion is around that. The tafsir of the early generations, all of it is around that. The ayah came down with that meaning.
وَإِذَا تُتْلَى عَلَيْهِ آيَاتُنَا وَلَّى مُسْتَكْبِرًا كَأَن لَّمْ يَسْمَعْهَا كَأَنَّ فِي أُذُنَيْهِ وَقْرًا فَبَشِّرْهُ بِعَذَابٍ أَلِيمٍ. And when our verses are recited to him, he turns away arrogantly, as if he had not heard them, as if there was in his ears deafness. So give him tidings of a painful punishment.
Also, I wanted to mention on the fawaid with regard to the two girls that were singing, because people bring this a lot. Bukhari is easy to answer, the hadith in Bukhari, because Bukhari has a system for his hadith. So the system is that when he narrates a hadith like that, if he narrates it in a way that he narrates it with confidence, the hadith is authentic. And the hadith is also connected outside of Sahih al-Bukhari. So there's no issue of the hadith itself being authentic. But people bring this hadith of the two girls. I want to draw your attention to two things. First of all, the statement of Abu Bakr, the instrument of the shaitan. Where did Abu Bakr get that idea from? Two girls singing, no musical instruments. two girls are singing on Eid day with no musical instruments, and Abu Bakr, his reaction is the instruments of shaitan. And he says to Aisha, how can you bring the shaitan's instruments into the house of Rasulullah? For that itself is a dalil that Abu Bakr saw that singing and music was forbidden. The Prophet ﷺ allowed those two girls. In terms of usul al-fiqh and general how we deal with the sharia of Islam, something is forbidden and the Prophet ﷺ allows a particular instance of it. Are you allowed to expand that allowance beyond what he gave? You're not, right? And there's no issue in that. And if there's something forbidden and the Prophet ﷺ comes along and says that particular thing is okay, you cannot expand what he said beyond what he allowed. For any time there are two little girls singing about something that is not haram on Eid day, no problem. Ayn wal Ra's, we don't have any issue with it. And some of the younger kids are enjoying themselves on Eid and they have like some kind of like inshad or nasheed, which is just, it's not taking the people away from Allah. And it's two girls and it's Eid day. Yeah, no issues with that. Like now to bring that out and say that you can do that every day of the year, that grown women can do it, grown men can do it. For now you've taken the allowance the Prophet ﷺ gave and made it far wider than what he actually allowed. If you put this ayah together with the ahadith and the other ayat we said that include it as well, for wallahi the issue should become clear to our people that this is not something permissible. As for the anasheed, then there is something clearly permissible and something clearly forbidden and something in between. So what is clearly permissible? What is clearly permissible is inshadu shi'r, to recite poetry in a nice voice. There is no difference with that. Hatta Hassan radiyallahu anhu was in the masjid one day and he was making inshadu shi'r and he was reading his poetry. And Umar came and rebuked him. And Umar said, it's a masjid, stop doing that. So he said, I used to do this and there was someone in the masjid better than you. Any meaning Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And it may possibly Abu Bakr, like in the Zahir is that he says, I used to do inshad of my poetry with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam in the masjid. For reading poetry in a nice voice, there's no issue with it. What is absolutely forbidden is music, singing in the way of the kuffar, the way they sing, musical instruments, including singing in the way that they sing, the way that the kuffar sing. So any kind of musical instrument with the exception of the duff, which is played at the wedding, which is like a simple drum that is played by the women at the wedding. And again, the girls, little girls, they hit the drum. All those musical instruments, plus singing in the way of the non-Muslims, the way that the kuffar sing. And it's not inshad al-shi'r. There's clearly a grey area in between, no doubt, la shak. There's a grey area in between, which is an area where people kind of sing, but it's sort of like poetry, but it's not, but it is, and there's some, it's in that place in the middle. For here, maybe we can say, we lighten it on Eid day and things like that, celebration, the wedding, for the young kids, we might make some allowances, as long as it doesn't resemble the way of the non-Muslims. There's no way that we can now go to that grey area and start to make that an industry within Islam. And you see them singing the way the non-Muslims sing, holding concerts the way the non-Muslims hold the concerts, the whole thing, serenading people in the front row. Wallahi, some of them were failures in the Western music industry. For what did they do? They sold us rotten dates and cheated us on the weight, and they moved themselves into the Islamic music industry. And some of them produced two versions of their nasheed, one with the guitar and the piano, and one without the guitar and the piano, for the religious people and the non-religious people. فَهُمْ فَاسِقُونَ. They are fusaq. They are not people to be looked up to. They are not people to be given respect. They are not people to be copied. They are afsaq al-fusaq. How can you have somebody who plays the piano and the guitar and makes a separate version for people who don't like the piano and the guitar? And then we put that person that, we should invite them to the halls and the masajid and whatever. This is lahu al-hadith. This is exactly what the ayah came down with regard to. This is important to understand. If the Rasul made an exception, you can make an exception within what he made an exception for. Like, you can't also change what Abu Bakr said. He didn't rebuke Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr said the instrument of shaitan. He didn't say, Abu Bakr, you're wrong. Singing is absolutely fine. He said, leave these two in this situation. It indicated that the statement of Abu Bakr there has weight to it, because the Prophet didn't rebuke him in it. He just made an exception to what Abu Bakr understood. This is lahu al-hadith. And the people who are into this entertainment, it doesn't matter, because the nice thing about the ayah is, one of the benefits the ayah doesn't mention music by name specifically, is that it includes not just music, dancing, entertainment, any of these kind of like the entertainment industry that is there to take people away from the path of Allah Azza wa Jal. Wallah, you can put the movies and all of that, all of it can be put into lahu al-hadith easily without changing the tafsir of the ayah. All of it is lahu al-hadith, because lahu al-hadith are the forms of entertainment that take people away from the path of Allah Azza wa Jal. And no doubt, the person, Qur'an and music doesn't go together with a person. A person cannot be a person of music and then become sahib al-Qur'an. And it's sad to see the Qurra of the Qur'an, that Allah gave them a position, getting involved in this and making anasheed. And even if it's in the grey area, it might not be in that which is haram. It doesn't raise your value. When I see a qari who's involved in making anasheed and has albums of anasheed, wallahi, it goes down in my eyes. Allah gave you honor, Allah gave you izzah. Why are you wasting your time with this? Sahih, no doubt, it might be in the grey area. It might not be in that which is clearly haram. With that, wallahi, there's nothing praiseworthy in it. Inshad al-shi'r is very beneficial. Poetry, we spoke about Surah al-Shu'ara. Poetry has got benefits in it. Wallah, lots of benefits in poetry. And you can read it nicely. It helps you to remember it. You can read it with a nice melody so it sticks in your head. In the poetry. It's still poetry. It's not music. Nobody would listen to it and say you're singing. It's just poetry. It has a rhythm of poetry, the sound of poetry, but it has a nice sound to it. So it makes it easy for you to remember. Those people who are involved in entertainment, when the ayat of Allah are recited to them, they turn away. Because these two things, lahu al-hadith and the ayat of Allah Azza wa Jal, they don't go together.
إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات لهم جنات النعيم. Indeed, those who believe and do righteous deeds, for them are the gardens of pleasure. خالدين فيها وعد الله حقا وهو العزيز الحكيم. Wherein they abide eternally is the promise of Allah, which is truth, and He is the exalted in might, the wise.
Is it possible that the ayah also includes other forms of evil speech? Yes, hatta some of the Salaf, why didn't they even to the people who speak about shirk and falsehood and evil and tell people to sin? For all of it, it all comes into the ayah that we spoke about. But we can continue, inshallah.
خلق السماوات بغير عمد ترونها وألقى في الأرض رواسي أن تميد بكم وبث فيها من كل دابة وأنزلنا من السماء ماء فأنبتنا فيها من كل زوج كريم. He created the heavens without pillars, that you see, and is cast into the earth firmly set mountains, lest it should shift with you and disperse therein from every creature. And we sent down rain from the sky and made grow therein plants of every noble kind.
And now in the next ayah, we see what was the benefit of Allah Azza wa Jal telling us all of those things. And that we've heard before elsewhere in the Qur'an. And what was the reason for it? The next ayah.
هذا خلق الله فأروني ماذا خلق الذين من دونه بل الظالمون في ضلال مبين. This is the creation of Allah, so show me what those other than Him have created. Rather, wrongdoers are in clear error.
Have they created the heavens without the pillars, or the earth with firm mountains, or have they created all of the creatures on the earth and the different plants that grow? None of these things they created it.
وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا لُقْمَانَ الْحِكْمَةَ أَنِ اشْكُرْ لِلَّهِ وَمَنْ يَشْكُرْ فَإِنَّمَا يَشْكُرُ لِنَفْسِهِ وَمَنْ كَفَرَ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَنِيٌّ حَمِيدٌ. And we had certainly given Luqman his wisdom and said, be grateful to Allah, and whoever is grateful for the benefit of himself, and whoever denies his favor, then indeed Allah is free of need and praiseworthy.
Now, this is the ayah for which the surah takes its name after Prophet, after Luqman al-Hakim. And the mashhur is that Luqman was not a prophet. That's the mashhur, is that he was a wise person who was given knowledge of the scripture. As-Sa'di rahimahullah ta'ala mentions actually a very big benefit here. He said, قَدْ يَكُونُ الْإِنسَانُ عَالِمًا وَلَا يَكُونُ حَكِيمًا. And he said, a person could be someone with knowledge, but not with wisdom. And it said that hikmah is acting upon the knowledge that you have, or being able to implement the knowledge that you have. That's a view with regard to what hikmah is. So he's known as Luqman al-Hakim. And any well-known view is that he wasn't a prophet, but he was a righteous man who had knowledge of the scripture. That knowledge and that wisdom led him to be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he'd be grateful to Allah. And whoever is grateful, their gratitude doesn't don't think that gratitude to Allah benefits Allah. Allah deserves you to be grateful, but it doesn't benefit Him. It benefits you. But if you deny the favor of Allah, Allah is free of all need and worthy of all praise.
وَإِذْ قَالَ لُقْمَانُ لِابْنِهِ وَهُوَ يَعِظُهُ يَا بُنَيَّ لَا تُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ إِنَّ الشِّرْكَ لَظُلْمٌ عَظِيمٌ. And mention, O Muhammad, when Luqman said to his son while he was instructing him, O my son, do not associate anything with Allah. Indeed, association with Him is great injustice.
Some of the scholars of Tafseer took the word hikmah here to be prophethood. So there is a view that he was a prophet. And that's based on وَلَقَدْ, it's based upon the ayah وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا لُقْمَانَ الْحِكْمَةِ. Some of them said hikmah here is prophethood. Like in the well-known view is that he was a righteous man. He was advising his son, instructing him. And this is part of a tarbiyah, the responsibility of the parents towards their children. To give them advice, to instruct them, to give them what they need to be as they grow up in terms of lessons and education and instruction. And he was giving his son a maw'idah, admonishing him in a way that touches his heart, advising him in a way, the maw'idah is the speech that touches a person's heart. He said, Ya bunay, my dear son. And Ya bunay is a way of saying it in a very soft way. My dear son, la tushrik billah. Do not make shirk with Allah. Inna shirka la dhulmun azim. Making shirk with Allah is the great injustice. Now here, what I want to draw your attention to is two things. First of all, that Luqman, from his wisdom, is to begin with the most important thing first. That's from the hikmah of Luqman al-Hakim. He doesn't start by saying, my son, do this, my son, do that, my son, listen to your parents, my son. The first thing he tells him is, the greatest of the awlawiyat, the most important thing you have to give attention to, and that is, La tushrik billah, my son, do not make a partner with Allah. Making a partner with Allah is a great injustice. And this ayah is the tafseer of the ayah in Surah Al-An'am. الذين آمنوا ولم يلبسوا إيمانهم بظلم أولئك لهم الأمن وهم مهتدون. The Prophet ﷺ made tafseer of it with this ayah. That's an example of tafseer al-Qur'ani bil-Qur'an. Making tafseer of the Qur'an using the Qur'an. The Prophet ﷺ made tafseer of the ayah in Surah Al-An'am about safety and guidance being from the people who don't do dhulm. He said it's not like you think. It's like Luqman said to his son, Ya bunayya la tushrik billah inna shirka la dhulmun azim. So the first thing he begins with is the issue of shirk. So beginning in your tarbiyah, when you're raising your children and you're trying to teach your people and educate them, the very first thing you teach them is at-tawheed, the oneness of Allah, and keeping away from making a partner with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
ووصينا الإنسان بوالديه حملته أمه وهنا على وهن وفصاله في عامين أن اشكر لي ولوالديك إلي المصير. And we have enjoined upon man care for his parents. His mother carried him, increasing her in weakness upon weakness, and his weaning is in 2 years. Be grateful to me and to your parents. To me is the final destination.
The first thing is, As-Sa'di, rahimahullah ta'ala, takes the view here that this is still from the speech of Luqman, or that it's still related to what Luqman said. That Luqman, he told his son that Allah Azza wa Jal has commanded you to be good to your parents. That seems to be his view here. Because he said, لَمَّا أَمَرَ بِالْقِيَامِ. Or perhaps not, perhaps I'm misreading it. Perhaps I'm misreading it. Because here none of the translations take it like that. Like it's as though it's an aside. Like in other words, the story, just to step out for a moment to say that while the command of Allah Azza wa Jal is the greatest, in the greatest command of Allah Azza wa Jal is not to make a partner with Allah, then after that comes being good to your parents. Your mother carried you with hardship upon hardship. وَهْنًا عَلَى وَهْنٍ مَشَقَّةٍ. The hardship of labor, the hardship of childbirth. And his weaning, the breastfeeding period, is 2 years. To be grateful to Allah and to be grateful to the parents. To be grateful to Allah Azza wa Jal and to be grateful to your parents. And that shows that whoever doesn't show gratitude to creation has not thanked Allah Azza wa Jal.
وَإِن جَاهَدَاكَ عَلَىٰ أَن تُشْرِكَ بِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا وَصَاحِبْهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا وَاتَّبِعْ سَبِيلَ مَنْ أَنَابَ إِلَيَّ ثُمَّ إِلَيَّ مَرْجِعُكُمْ فَأُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِمَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. But if they endeavor to make you associate with me that of which you have no knowledge, do not obey them but accompany them in this world with appropriate kindness and follow the way of those who turn back to me in repentance. Then to me will be your return, and I will inform you about what you used to do.
Yeah, appropriate kindness is a good word. Courteously is also a good word. Because al-ma'ruf joins between two things. It joins between doing good but it also joins between what people's customs and expectations are. Yani صاحبهما في الدنيا معروفا. Accompany them in this world in a way that matches their expectations. Because al-ma'ruf comes from good, and it also comes from al-urf, that which is customary, what people would expect, in a way that would not make them feel hard done by, would not make them feel like they have been abandoned. Now look what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِن جَاهَدَاكَ, if they perform jihad for you to make a partner with me, which is the greatest sin. So now we spoke about the greatest sin is shirk. And then we said, the greatest sin is shirk. And we said one of the greatest sins after shirk is to be bad to your parents. Then the issue would come up and a person would ask the question, what would happen if my parents told me to commit shirk? فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا لَا طَاعَةَ لِمَخْلُوقٍ فِي مَعْصِيَةِ الْخَالِقِ. There's no obedience to creation if it means disobeying the Creator. But do so in a way that doesn't leave them feeling that you have left kindness to them, or that you have left the customary expectation of the way that children behave towards their parents. And then Allah Azza wa Jal commands us to repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to know that we will return to Him. But in this, wallahi, there's so many lessons. Again, these ayat, we're not going to be able to do it justice in the time we have. Just to get an understanding of it.
يا بني إنها إن تك مثقال حبة من خردل فتكن في صخرة أو في السماوات أو في الأرض يأت بها الله إن الله لطيف خبير. And Luqman said, "O my son, indeed if it should be the weight of a mustard seed and should be within a rock or anywhere in the heavens or in the earth, Allah will bring it forth. Indeed, Allah is subtle and aware."
I'm not sure about this saying, if a wrong. I think that's not needed here, because the ayah is more general than just a wrong, and it covers everything. So what is he teaching his son here? He's teaching his son the muraqabah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's teaching his son muraqabah. What does it, how to be to know that Allah Azza wa Jal is watching you. And this is from the most important things you can share with your children. To teach and instill in your children the muraqabah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The muraqabah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To be aware that Allah Azza wa Jal is watching you. And children, you know how children are. Children are brought up to be scared of their parents. That's a mistake a lot of people make. And it's true, we should bring children up to respect their parents. But children are brought up that in a way where they are told to be scared of your parents. And your dad is going to see what you've done. Your mom is going to know what you've done. We need to try and avoid that wherever possible and direct them like Luqman did. Realize that Allah sees what you do. Whatever hidden thing you've done, Allah will see it. Because children generally, they get that idea that as long as my mom and dad doesn't see me do something, then ultimately, I'm all right. Nobody saw me do it. So teaching your children that Allah sees you, the muraqabah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that if Allah Azza wa Jal, if there was something the weight of a mustard seed, even if it was within a rock, anywhere in the heavens or the earth, Allah Azza wa Jal will bring it forth. Allah is Latif. Here, Al-Latif means the one who has subtle knowledge of everything. Al-Latif is close to the meaning of Al-Khabir here. Whereas in the story of Yusuf, Al-Latif is to do with the way that the plans of Allah, and the way that the plans of Allah are subtle. Things happen without realizing. But another meaning of Al-Latif, the one in the ayah here, is that Allah knows the most minute, the most minuscule details.
يا بني أقم الصلاة وأمر بالمعروف وانه عن المنكر واصبر على ما أصابك إن ذلك من عزم الأمور. O my son, establish prayer, enjoin what is right, forbid what is wrong, and be patient over what befalls you. Indeed, all that is of the matters requiring resolve.
And from the wisdom that Luqman conveys to his son, after telling him about, what's he told him about? About shirk. And Allah Azza wa Jal tells us about the issue of being good to the parents. Now Luqman tells his son after that about the muraqabah of Allah. And know that Allah is watching you. Know that Allah knows everything. Know, this is ihsan, right? He's teaching his child to be a person of ihsan. أن تعبد الله كأنك تراه فإن لم تكن تراه فإنه يراك. Yani the lesser pillar of ihsan, that even if you can't worship Allah as though you see Him, minimum is that you know that Allah sees you. Luqman taught that. Then he said to his son, establish the prayer. Look at the awlawiyat, and how important things are. Leave shirk. Don't be a person who makes a partner with Allah. Be aware that Allah is watching you. Perform the prayer. Give the zakah. Command what is good, and forbid what is evil. Or here, command what is good. Al-amr bil-ma'roof wa-nahi anil munkar. And be patient over what befalls you. What does that tell you? When you command what is good and forbid what is evil, what will befall you will be difficulties. The more you command what is good and forbid what is evil, the more difficulties you're going to have. And then he tells him something very important. This, my son, is going to require a lot of effort from you. Don't see this to be a light issue. Don't see it to be a small thing. Don't feel like it's just going to be a small task of yours. This is going to require azima from you. You're going to be tried, you're going to be tested, you're going to have to work hard, you're going to have times where things don't work out for you, you're going to suffer from people because of it. So preparing someone for difficulties is a very good way of teaching someone. If you know something's going to be hard, and you say to your kids, for example, this exam you're going to have, it's going to be hard, prepare well for it. So he tells him that this commanding good and forbidding evil, people are not going to open their arms for you. You're going to have difficulties, you're going to have troubles. It's going to require a lot of resolve and determination, hard work.
ولا تصعر خدك للناس ولا تمش في الأرض مرحا إن الله لا يحب كل مختال فخور. And do not turn your cheek in contempt toward people, and do not walk through the earth exultantly.
Oh. Exultantly. Now.
Indeed, Allah does not like everyone self-deluded and boastful.
So once Luqman speaks to his son about the rights of Allah and the fara'id. So if we were to broadly divide what Luqman spoke to his son about, we'd say the first thing he spoke to him about is tawheed. The second thing he spoke to him is about afradul fara'id, the most important fara'id. Because azm al-umur, another view with regard to it, is azm al-umur are the matters which are the most serious in Islam. Inna dhalika min azm al-umur, these things I've told you are the most serious commandments in Islam. Aqim as-salah, perform the prayer. Naam. Give what is good, command what is good and forbid what is wrong. These are the most important commandments. After the fara'id, what does he speak to his son about? So the issue of muraqabah, you could say, is to do with the names of Allah. So tawheed still comes in the top. Tawheed al-uluhiyyah, and the issue of al-asma wa sifat, knowing Allah and who is Allah. Then it comes the fara'id. Then comes how you deal with the people, the akhlaq and the mu'amala with the people. Don't turn your cheek to people. And in other words, out of pride. I think don't turn your nose up to people. That's one criticism I have of the clear Qur'an. It's good in places, but sometimes a bit too far, because Allah said don't turn your cheek, and then they translated it as don't turn your nose. But that is an expression in English. We say don't turn your nose up at people, but it's not what Allah said. And you lose benefits like that. Because the benefit of the cheek is, when you're talking to someone, turn to face them and address them. Don't be someone who is like, who are you? Get away from me. And you turn and face someone when you're talking to them. For there's benefits you lose when you bring it into an English expression that doesn't represent what the ayah says. And you don't turn your cheek in contempt towards people. And don't walk through the earth with pride and arrogance. Allah does not like the one who is arrogant and boastful, the one who is impressed by himself. SubhanAllah, he's teaching his son the best of manners with Allah and with the people. For he teaches him al-akhlaq, what relates to Allah and what relates to the people.
وَقَصِدْ فِي مَشِيكَ وَاغْضُضْ مِنْ صَوْتِكَ إِنَّ أَنْكَرَ الْأَصْوَاتِ لَصَوْتُ الْحَمِيرِ. And be moderate in your pace and lower your voice. Indeed, the most disagreeable of sounds is the voice of donkeys.
You need to be moderate. Al-qasd here is al-muqtasid, is the one who is in the middle between two things. So here, this is to do with the wasatiyah, right? The wasatiyah even extends to your behaviors, the moderate nature of Islam, and the middle ground, the middle ummah. That when you're walking among the people, be in the middle. Don't be the person who is out in front of the people in a way that shows arrogance, or the one who lags behind in a way that shows bad manners. For that is true, when we're not talking about someone who naturally walks quickly. The Prophet ﷺ used to naturally walk quickly, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. كَأَنَّهُ يَنْحَطُ مِنْ صَبَبٍ. They said he walked so fast that it felt like he's going downhill when everyone else is going uphill. He was very fast in his walking. But it's natural, without takalluf. The person's not trying to be out ahead from the people. Neither is somebody trying to hang back like a straggler. But be a person who, what you do, and subhanAllah, if you are like that in your walking, how will you be like in everything else? In everything, you'll be a person who doesn't spend too much, who doesn't spend too little, who is in everything, be muqtasid. Be someone who is in your manners. As for muqtasid in your ibadat, no, in your ibadat you want to be from sabiqun, the people who go ahead. When you're dealing with the people, be balanced. You be someone who is not out of pride, storming ahead of the people, nor is someone who is hanging back like a straggler, that it's not part of it, but be someone who is in the middle. And lower your voice, because the ugliest of all voices, the worst of voices, is the voice of the donkey, and the voice, the braying of somebody who doesn't, when you see somebody with good etiquette, the way they speak to people, the etiquettes of speech, the way that they deal with people. And it's very important. SubhanAllah, the voice of the donkey is given as an example of a harsh, rash sound that doesn't have any people, there's no benefit, there's no ilm in it, there's no knowledge in it. Just that harsh, brash, shouting over the top of people. For he teaches him etiquette, subhanAllah. I'll read to you what As-Sajdah says about the last one. He said, وَقْصِدْ فِي مَشِيكَ, meaning walk in a state of humility and a state of dignity when you walk. In humility and dignity when you walk. Don't walk with al-batar wa takabbur, any arrogance. You put your chest out and you storming like that with your arms going and everything. Walk with humility. That's the first thing he says. He said, out of good manners with Allah and with the people, lower your voice. And the worst voices is the voice of the hamir. And he said, if raising your voice has a benefit to it, it's not Sawt al-Hamir. That's a fa'idah Sa'di brought, wallah, it's very beneficial. That Sawt al-Hamir is raising your voice without a benefit. Because the donkey is not educated, right? The donkey is given as an example of an animal that is not, it's not an animal that is, and the sound of the donkey is not given respect like that. Like maybe the sound of the cockerel or the sound of the rooster is given any respect that sound that I don't. Like in the sound of the donkey like that, it's a sound of, it doesn't have a benefit in it. So Sa'di said, if you raise your voice for a benefit, there's no harm in it. But just raising your voice for the sake of no benefit, this is when it becomes Sawt al-Hamir. He said this advice from Luqman, honestly, it gathers together the root of wisdom. Al-adab ma'Allah wa ma'an-nas, good behavior with people and with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, tawheed, knowing Allah Azza wa Jalla and His names and attributes, as-salah, commanding good, being patient, having determination, knowing what's important in the religion, what are the most important rulings in the religion, the etiquettes, humility with the people. For wallahi, it contains a lot of benefits, more than we can cover in this session.
ألم تروا أن الله سخر لكم ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وأسبغ عليكم نعمه ظاهرة وباطنة ومن الناس من يجادل في الله بغير علم ولا هدى ولا كتاب منير. Do you not see that Allah has made subject to you whatever is in the heavens and whatever is in the earth, and
He's made subject, has made subject to you,
and has made subject to,
and is amply bestowed.
Yeah, and amply bestowed upon you His favors, both apparent and unapparent. But of the people is he who disputes about Allah without knowledge or guidance or an enlightening book from Him.
Allah Azza wa Jal mentions His blessings upon us, and that these blessings are so many they cannot be counted. They are the blessings that you can see and the blessings that you don't see. And yet, despite those blessings, there are those people who dispute with regard to Allah Azza wa Jal. Without knowledge, without guidance, and without a book giving light.
وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمُ اتَّبِعُوا مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ قَالُوا بَلْ نَتَّبِعُ مَا وَجَدْنَا عَلَيْهِ آبَاءَنَا أَوَلَوْ كَانَ الشَّيْطَانُ يَدْعُوهُمْ إِلَى عَذَابِ السَّعِيرِ. And when it is said to them, follow what Allah has revealed, they say, rather, we will follow that upon which we found our fathers, even if shaitan was inviting them to the punishment of the blaze.
And when it's said to those people, when they argue with you, follow what Allah revealed, they say, we'd rather follow what our fathers used to do. Even though shaitan, the end result of that is that shaitan is calling them to the fire.
وَمَن يُسْلِمْ وَجْهَهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَهُوَ مُحْسِنٌ فَقَدِ اسْتَمْسَكَ بِالْعُرْوَةِ الْوُثْقَى وَإِلَى اللَّهِ عَاقِبَةُ الْأُمُورِ. And whoever submits his face to Allah while he is a doer of good, then he has grasped the most trustworthy handhold, and to Allah will be the outcome of all matters.
And he submits himself to Allah, and he does the deeds which are acceptable to Allah. And he muhsin, he does the deeds that are in accordance with the sunnah, that are acceptable to Allah Azza wa Jal. That person has grasped the most trustworthy handhold. which will save him from destruction.
وَمَنْ كَفَرَ فَلَا يَحْزُنْكَ كُفْرُهُ إِلَيْنَا مَرْجِعُهُمْ فَنُنَبِّئُهُمْ بِمَا عَمِلُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلِيمٌ بِذَاتِ الصُّدُورِ. And whoever has disbelieved, let not his disbelief grieve you. To us is their return, and we will inform them what they did. Indeed, Allah is knowing of that within the breasts.
Before that, what it says here is Al-Urwatul Wuthqa is La ilaha illallah, according to the most famous tafseer, that Al-Urwatul Wuthqa is La ilaha illallah. The most trustworthy handhold is La ilaha illallah. Tayyib, La ilaha illallah is the most trustworthy handhold. Where does that relate to the muhsin? How does that relate to the muhsin, the one who is a muhsin? They say here that the muhsin is the one who brings sincerity along with following the sunnah. But the person brought La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Sincerity along with following the sunnah. That's the connection between that and between La ilaha illallah, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. Now, you can continue with the next time.
نمتعهم قليلا ثم نضطرهم إلى عذاب غليظ. We grant them enjoyment for a little, then we will force them to a massive punishment. وَلَئِن سَأَلْتَهُم مَّنْ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ لَيَقُولُنَّ اللَّهُ قُلِ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ بَلْ أَكْثَرُهُمْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. And if you ask them who created the heavens and earth, they would surely say Allah. Say all praise is due to Allah, but most of them do not know. لله ما في السماوات والأرض إن الله هو الغني الحميد. To Allah belongs whatever is in the heavens and earth. Indeed, Allah is the free of need, the praiseworthy. ولو أن ما في الأرض من شجرة أقلام والبحر يمده من بعده 7 أبحر ما نفدت كلمات الله إن الله عزيز حكيم. And if whatever trees upon the earth were pens and the sea was ink, replenished thereafter by 7 more seas, the words of Allah would not be exhausted. Indeed, Allah is exalted in might and wise.
Sa'di here says some very beneficial, it's a very beneficial commentary. He said, Allah Azza wa Jal told us the vastness of His speech and the greatness of it. For here, this is the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The sifa of Allah Azza wa Jal, His kalam, is so vast and so great. He gave an example, he said, which reaches inside of the heart, and it reaches deep into the heart. Because we cannot understand the sifat of Allah Azza wa Jal except with what Allah tells us, right? So we can only know what Allah and His Messenger said. So Allah Azza wa Jal wants to tell us about His kalam, the superiority of His kalam, and including in the kalimat shar'iyya, the kalimat qadariyya, the kalimat which relate to qadr, the commands of Allah which relate to the sharia. They are so vast that if every single tree on the earth was a pen, and if the seas of the earth became 7 times more than they are, the words of Allah would not finish. And if you want to understand that a bit more, look at the ayah in Surah Ar-Rahman. يَسْأَلُهُ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ كُلَّ يَوْمٍ هُوَ فِي شَأْنٍ. Every single day Allah Azza wa Jal is engaged in something. Forgiving, punishing, decreeing death and life. And the qadr of Allah Azza wa Jal, His decree that He it doesn't have any, and you cannot understand a limit to it. And even if every tree on the earth was a pen, and the sea 7 times bigger than it is was a pot of ink, the words of Allah Azza wa Jal will not finish. And the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and As-Sajdah says, this is not exaggeration. Don't think that Allah Azza wa Jal is exaggerating so you understand. There is no exaggeration in this at all. Rather, Allah Azza wa Jal knows that the intellect cannot grasp the vastness of Allah's attributes. So Allah Azza wa Jal, and He wants you to understand something about the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, لا نحصي ثناء عليك أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك. We cannot enumerate your praise. You are as you praised yourself. So this here is, he said, is min bab taqreeb al-ma'na. It is there to help you to understand the meaning. He said, even if the trees were multiplied many, many times, and As-Sajdah says, the purpose of this is taqreeb al-ma'na. What it means is, don't understand from that if the trees were doubled, they would be enough. Or don't understand that if the sea was 10 times, it would be enough. This example is given to help you to understand the meaning, that there is no limit, that the sifat of Allah Azza wa Jal, His kalam, it doesn't have a limit to it. He says, as for the speech of Allah Azza wa Jal, it doesn't ever cease. And that is the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, وَأَنَّ إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ الْمُنْتَهَى in Surah An-Najm. That Allah Azza wa Jal, His sifat never cease. That's what As-Sajdah says the ayah means, وَأَنَّ إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ الْمُنْتَهَى. That's one of the views of the ayah. The ayah means that the sifat of Allah, Allah's description, Allah's attributes, they never, ever, ever cease. He said, وَاللَّهُ فِي جَمِيعِ الْأَوْقَاتِ يَحْكُمْ وَيَتَكَلَّمْ وَيَقُولُ وَيَفْعَلْ كَيْفَ أَرَادَ. He said, in every moment, Allah Azza wa Jal is passing judgment, speaking, saying whatever He wants, whenever He wants, doing whatever He wants, whenever He wants. كُلَّ يَوْمٍ هُوَ فِي شَأْنٍ. And when Allah Azza wa Jal wants, nothing can stop His statements and His actions. So a person to understand that, this is the example that is given. To help you to understand that in every moment Allah Azza wa Jal is judging, is passing judgment, is ruling, is creating, is decreeing things and providing for people. The speech of Allah Azza wa Jal and His actions, whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every moment, كُلَّ يَوْمٍ هُوَ فِي شَأْنٍ. For that's the meaning of the example that is given.
ما خلقكم ولا بعثكم إلا كنفس واحدة إن الله سميع بصير. Your creation and your resurrection will not be but as that of a single soul. Indeed, Allah is hearing and seeing.
Recreating the whole of mankind is no different to Allah Azza wa Jal than a single person. Allah Azza wa Jal can recreate the whole of mankind with equal ease. Nothing is hard for Him. That's what He created Adam, as Him creating any one individual. Everything is easy for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is no, the creation and resurrection of all of mankind will be as easy for Allah as a single soul.
ألم تر أن الله يولج الليل في النهار ويولج النهار في الليل وسخر الشمس والقمر كل يجري إلى أجل مسمى وأن الله بما تعملون خبير. Do you not see that Allah causes the night to enter the day and causes the day to enter the night and has subjected the sun and the moon, each running its course for a specified term? And that is Allah, of whatever you do is aware.
And that Allah. Yeah?
And that Allah, of whatever you do is aware.
No.
ذلك بأن الله هو الحق وأن ما يدعون من دونه الباطل وأن الله هو العلي الكبير. That is because Allah is the true reality and that what they call upon other than Him is falsehood, and because Allah is the Most High, the Grand.
Now, from the names of Allah Azza wa Jalla is Al-Ali Al-Kabir. Al-Ali, the one who has uluwan, mutlaq fi dhatihi, wa yani ulu al-qadr wa ulu al-qahr, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ulu in Himself, in His status and subjugating His creation. And Allah Azza wa Jalla is Al-Kabir, Al-Akbar. There is, Allah Azza wa Jalla is Al-Kabir. We say Allahu Akbar. There is nothing greater than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nothing more grand than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah Azza wa Jalla here mentions that dua to anything other than Him is al-batil, including dua to the Prophet ﷺ and dua to the Salihin and dua to the awliya. All of it is falsehood.
ألم تر أن
نعم ألم تر.
We read that one.
No,
ألم تر أن الفلك تجري في البحر بنعمة الله ليريكم من آياته إن في ذلك لآيات لكل صبار شكور. Do you not see that the ships sail through the sea by the favor of Allah, that He may show you of His signs? Indeed, in that are signs for everyone patient and grateful.
And the people who benefit, this shows you that the people who benefit from the ayat of Allah are the people who join between sabr and shukr. This ayah is very important as evidence for that. That the people who benefit from Allah's ayat, al-kawniyya wa shar'iyya, the ayat in the sharia and the ayat in Allah's creation, are the people who join between sabr and shukr. Sabr when things get difficult, and shukr in times of ease. You need to also remember that sabr and shukr are constant in a person. What I mean is, it's not the case that a person, everything in their life is easy or everything in their life is difficult. There's a predominant situation, no doubt. There's moments where things are easier and moments where things are harder. But it's not the case to say that a person has absolute hardship in every single area and there's nothing that Allah Azza wa Jal has made easy for them. There's not a single ni'mah Allah has given them. That's not the case. So everyone is constantly in a state of sabr and shukr, but no doubt one of them overcomes the other at certain times in your life. There's predominant hardship or predominant ease. So you join between sabr and shukr. And from the best books that you can go to get more about that is the book of Ibn al-Qayyim, which is called Uddatu Sabirin. I think it's called Uddatu Sabirin wa Dhakhiratu Shakirin. But it's known as Uddatu Sabirin, and I think in English it's been summarized in the book Patience and Gratitude by Ibn al-Qayyim.
وَإِذَا غَشِيَهُم مَّوْجٌ كَالظُّلَلِ دَعَوُا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ فَلَمَّا نَجَّاهُمْ إِلَى الْبَرِّ فَمِنْهُم مُّقْتَصِدٌ وَمَا يَجْحَدُ بِآيَاتِنَا إِلَّا كُلُّ خَتَّارٍ كَفُورٍ. And when waves come over them like canopies, they supplicate to Allah, sincere to Him in religion. But when He delivers them to the land, there are some of them who are moderate in faith, and none rejects our signs except everyone treacherous and ungrateful.
Here, the difficult word to understand is moderate in faith. Moderate here is not praiseworthy. Sometimes the iqtisad, waqsid, the command to be moderate in walking is a good thing. But here, moderate in your commitment to Islam, in your commitment to Iman. And he's not really truly grateful to Allah. He hasn't really brought a shukr ala wajh al-kamal, the way it should be done. So the person is moderate as in not really committed to what they should be, not having enough commitment. Meaning that when they are on the sea, their faith in Allah is not shared, and they don't share it with any idols, with any dua to anyone else. It's complete and total commitment to Allah. But when they go to land, they share that commitment. So now their commitment to Allah lessens. So this is not a praiseworthy, the moderate here is not praiseworthy. Muhsin Khan says they stop between belief and disbelief, but that is also a little bit problematic, and it's not the best translation. Relatively grateful, the clear Qur'an. I think lacking full commitment, something like that would be good. Because the word moderate, it's a very difficult word. It's like when people say moderate Muslims, and what do you mean by moderate Muslims? Often people by moderate Muslims, what they mean is Muslims that don't practice their religion properly. Yeah, he's a moderate Muslim. He doesn't mind doing haram. That's not a good thing, right? But then we talk about being a moderate Muslim as in not being an extremist, which is a good thing. For there's, like, the word can be used for both ways, so you have to clarify what you mean by it. So I think in the translation, it would be better to say, who are lacking full commitment in faith, or lacking full sincerity in their faith, something like that. Now.
يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم واخشوا يوما لا يجزي والد عن ولده ولا مولود هو جاز عن والده شيئا إن وعد الله حق فلا تغرنكم الحياة الدنيا ولا يغرنكم بالله الغرور. O mankind, fear your Lord and fear a day when no father will avail his son, nor will a son avail his father at all. Indeed, the promise of Allah is truth, so let not the worldly life delude you, and be not deceived about Allah by the deceiver.
And this ayah is, subhanAllah, it's a profound ayah in the issue of being scared of Yawm al-Qiyamah. Have taqwa of Allah and be scared of a day that no father will be able to benefit his son. And actually here, you can say al-walad, and you can use it for child. That's fine. No father will be, no parent will be able to benefit the child. I think father and son here is not needed, because the word walad can be more generic than that. No parent will be able to benefit their child. Nor will a child be able to benefit their parent in anything. So don't let yourself be deluded by the life of this world. And don't let shaitan, the chief deceiver, the one who is the great deceiver, the great liar, don't let him deceive you about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
إن الله عنده علم الساعة وينزل الغيث ويعلم ما في الأرحام وما تدري نفس ماذا تكسب غدا وما تدري نفس بأي أرض تموت إن الله عليم خبير.
Indeed, Allah alone has knowledge of the hour and sends down the rain and knows what is in the wombs. And no soul perceives what it will earn tomorrow, and no soul perceives in what land it will die. Indeed, Allah is knowing and aware.
And these are the 5 things which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about at the end of Surah Luqman, that Allah Azza wa Jal has knowledge of alone. The knowledge of the hour. And that doesn't mean it's limited to 5 things. It can be more, but this ayah mentions 5. The knowledge of the hour, when the hour will come. Neither does Jibreel know it, nor does the Prophet ﷺ know it, when that hour will come. The sending down of the rain. Now, the sending down of the rain, people say, but what about the weather forecast, right? We might know when it's about to rain, or we might be able to look at the clouds. Juani, don't misunderstand. That has always been there. Okay, weather forecasting in the way we do it now, but people have always been able to look at the clouds and say, I think it's going to rain. That's not the meaning of the ayah. It's never been. That's because it's not something that was even unique in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Many people used to look and say, sniff the air, and the people who I think it's going to rain today or tonight. And that has never been the meaning of the ayah at all. The ayah here is everything connected to the rain. When will the rain fall? How much will fall? Who will it fall upon? Will it fall in a way that benefits the people or causes them destruction? Will it be there are animals that will drink from it, or will they not? And you look at, subhanAllah, we might be able to get a rough idea of the rain. Like, in so many times we are wrong. Like the weather forecasting, how many times? I mean, I think the UK, nobody in the UK can deny this. I think in the Middle East, people don't know what a weather forecast is. What do you say? Like, today it's going to be sunny, tomorrow it's going to be sunny, the next 300 days it's going to be sunny. And people don't really know what the weather forecast is. Like, and you live in the UK, you understand. Today it's going to rain, torrential rain, nobody leave the house, you're going to be not safe in your car, the sun is out. Nice and bright in the sky. So I'm not saying people don't have an idea about the rain. Like, in the ihata of the knowledge of that rain is only with Allah Azza wa Jal. For example, ask them next year, how much rain will fall? Will it be a wet June, or will it be a dry June? Nobody knows except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As for being able to look at the clouds and plan where you think the cloud will fall, how did this not a miracle in the first place? Okay, now we do it a bit better because we can see more of the sky at one time with satellites and things like that. Like, and it's no different to the person who used to look on the horizon and say, there's clouds coming, they look like it's rain. It'll probably take about an hour to reach us. So that's never been, and that has never been from the matters of the ghaib, the matters of al-ghaib al-mutlaq, that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. Rather, if you look at the comprehensive issue here, if you don't see the clouds in the sky coming towards you, when do you know if it's going to rain? When do you know what clouds are going to form? How many storms will there be in this year? How many floods? Who will be flooded? Who will have a wet year? Who will have a dry year? Who will be in drought? All of that, the issue, no one knows it except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But don't be fooled by the fact that people come and say, Allah says He only knows when He has knowledge of the hour, and He alone sends down the rain. Also here, you can point to the fact that it doesn't also, here the emphasis is not on knowledge. If you look at the first one, the knowledge of the hour, and then the knowledge of the womb, and the sending down of the rain in between. Meaning that what is the thing here is that only Allah causes the rain to fall. No one causes the rain to fall except Allah. And the knowledge is there as well, there's no doubt. Knowledge, the ayah is all about knowledge. The knowledge of what rain will fall and when and who and how will it benefit them, and so on. And He knows what is in the wombs. Again, some people, subhanAllah, when they first read it, how we said about mistranslation of ayat, no one knows the gender of the baby. Oh no, now we know the gender of the baby. It's not the gender of the baby that is mentioned in the ayah. And it's not that nobody can do an ultrasound or no one can do a scan and see the baby. And what is in the womb, what will come out in terms of, will it be born prematurely? Will it be born on time? Will it be healthy? Will it be sick? Will it be a believer? Will it be a disbeliever? Will it live for 50 years or will it live for 5 days? That is, no one knows it except Allah Azza wa Jal. As for having limited knowledge of being able to put a camera and say that this is a boy or this is a girl, or this baby has got a big, his head is too big, or this baby has got a deformity, or that is something you can see with your own eyes, and the only thing that's stopping you is some skin and muscle, and it's not something unusual. Like in the ayah says to know what is in the wombs comprehensively. So what is in the wombs comprehensively? And is it going to be a believer or disbeliever? How many years will it live for? And will it be everything about it? Will it be righteous? Will it not? Will it be sick in the future? Will it not? What is going to come out from the womb? In every aspect. That is from which Allah Azza wa Jal has kept in the unseen with Him. Like in here you could also say that, isn't it true that Allah Azza wa Jal gives the angels knowledge of that? We say not completely, partially yes. And that shows that partial knowledge of these things, like for example, being able to say that we think it's going to rain this afternoon, or knowing that it's a boy or a girl, that has not been kept back from creation. So for example, the angels are given from Allah's knowledge, the angels are told, write down that whether it's going to be a boy or a girl, or whether it's going to be righteous or not, or whether it's going to be from the people of the fire, how long it will live. So the angels now are from the creation who have some of that knowledge because Allah gave it to them. But the complete ihata of what is going to come out from that womb, no one knows it except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nobody knows what they will earn tomorrow. Tomorrow in the future. Nobody knows what they will earn tomorrow. No one knows what they will earn tomorrow, and the earning tomorrow, and I'll see if As-Sa'di says this, like from what I've heard about it. That's the Sahih what As-Sa'di said. What they will earn in their deen and their dunya. Again, someone says, no, tomorrow, I know I get my salary paid monthly. I know what I'm going to earn tomorrow. Like, it's not the meaning of the ayah. The ayah never came with this meaning that nobody knows that. Yeah, anyone in the time of the Prophet ﷺ could have had a contract that says, tomorrow I'm going to pay back your debt. It's not the meaning. In the dunya, what will happen to you tomorrow? What will happen tomorrow to you in your deen? What will be accepted from you? What won't? What loss could happen to you in your wealth? And what gain could you get? Aside from what you have planned. You've planned you're going to get your salary. Like, and how much are you going to lose that day? What accidents and misfortunes might happen to you, or good things might happen to you. And nobody knows in what land they will die. And nobody knows. And بِأَيِّ أَرْضٍ تَمُوتُ, what place will a person die? What time will a person die? Hatta even when you see the examples where it is like, to the point where, subhanAllah, you see someone who is like at the end of their life and the doctor says you have like just a few days left to live. Nobody knows the time of death. Nobody knows when that person will die, what that person will die upon, where is it that person will die. So many times people think he's going to die and he doesn't die, or someone thinks he's healthy and he ends up. All of it is in the hands of Allah. Nobody knows. This is from the things that Allah Azza wa Jal kept in the ghaib with Him alone, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-Alim, Al-Khabir. I'm going to highlight this for a bit more information that we come back to it, because there are still some shubuhat around it that people might ask about. People might ask, why is this mentioned like this? Or what about what we know now, or how the world is changing? Is this included or not? So I'm going to bring you some more details on it next time, inshallah. I want to take a break, just a short one, 5 minutes. So we'll come back for Surah As-Sajdah, inshallah ta'ala. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salam ala abdillahi wa rasulih, Nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een, amma ba'd. So we reach this 32nd surah of the Qur'an, Surah As-Sajdah. And its surah is Makkiyah. Surah came to the Prophet ﷺ during the time that he was in Makkah.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alif Lam Mim. Alif Lam Mim. تنزيل الكتاب لا ريب فيه من رب العالمين. This is the revelation of the book about which there is no doubt from the Lord of the worlds. أم يقولون افتراه بل هو الحق من ربك لتنذر قوما ما أتاهم من نذير من قبلك لعلهم يهتدون. Or do they say he invented it? Rather, it is the truth from your Lord, O Muhammad, that you may warn a people to whom no warner has come before you, so perhaps they will be guided.
In the Prophet ﷺ was sent فترة من الرسل, and after there having been a gap in between the messengers. So they were a people who were not like Bani Israel, they had had prophets before.
الله الذي خلق السماوات والأرض وما بينهما في 6 أيام ثم استوى على العرش ما لكم من دونه من ولي ولا شفيع أفلا تتذكرون. It is Allah who created the heavens and the earth and whatever is between them in 6 days. Then he established himself above the throne.
Established himself.
Oh, he rose above the throne. You have not besides him any protector or any intercessor, so will you not be reminded?
How do you reconcile the fact that you have no intercessor with the fact that there is intercession Yawm al-Qiyamah, and you have no intercessor without Allah's permission, and therefore you have no one independently that you can go to besides Allah for intercession without Allah's permission?
يدبر الأمر من السماء إلى الأرض ثم يعرج إليه في يوم كان مقداره 1000 سنة مما تعدون. He arranges each matter from the heaven to the earth. Then he will ascend to him in a day, the extent of which is 1,000 years of those which you count.
Now here is a proof for the highness of Allah Azza wa Jal, that Allah Himself is high above the heavens. He arranges the matters from the heaven to the earth, and then it ascends to Him. يَعْرُجُ إِلَيْهِ, and it ascends to Him, which is a proof for His highness, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in a day that its measurement is 1,000 years of what you count. I will read to you what As-Sajdah says about it. I'll come back to it. I didn't find he didn't make much of a commentary on it like that. He just said that it reaches Allah in a moment. That despite the length of 1,000 years, of 1,000 human years, it reaches Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a single moment. But we get some more about that, inshallah ta'ala. I'll bring you the views of the scholars regarding the 1,000 and the 50,000. And I'll bring you from the book of Muhammad al-Amin al-Shanqiti, al-Allama, rahimahullah ta'ala, with regard to Dafa', the book which talks about stopping people from thinking that there are any contradictions in the Qur'an. It's very good. She wrote a very, very good book. We'll speak about it more. I'll put it on the notes to speak about more. Like in As-Sajdah says that it all ascends to Him on a day whose length is 1,000 years by your count, but it ascends to Him in a moment. And it reaches Him in a single moment, even though the distance that it is 1,000 years of human counting.
ذلك عالم الغيب والشهادة العزيز الرحيم. This is the knower of the unseen and the witnessed, the exalted in might, the merciful. الذي أحسن كل شيء خلقه وبدأ خلق الإنسان من طين. Who perfected everything which He created and began the creation of man from clay. ثم جعل نسله من سلالة من ماء مهين. Then he made his posterity
in descendants, yani, his offspring.
Out of the
posterity.
Extract of a liquid disdained.
Yani, a liquid disdained, yani, is that's the best translation. It's better than a humble fluid and a despised water, is a liquid disdained. Yani, people, the discharge of men and women, it's not something that is honorable. It's not something that people give great honor to it. And it's something that is wiped away and cleaned, not something that is given honor. Yet from it, Allah Azza wa Jal brought human beings.
ثم سواه ونفخ فيه من روحه وجعل لكم السمع والأبصار والأفئدة قليلا ما تشكرون. Then he proportioned him and breathed into him from his created soul and made for you hearing and vision and hearts. Little are you grateful.
Allah Azza wa Jal sawahu, he gave him his proportion. And Allah Azza wa Jal commanded for the spirit to be breathed into or to be blown into the person.
وقالوا أإذا ضللنا في الأرض أإنا لفي خلق جديد بل هم بلقاء ربهم كافرون. And they say, when we are lost within the earth, will we indeed be recreated in a new creation? Rather, they are in the meeting with their Lord disbelievers.
And despite this, despite what they see that Allah created Adam from turab and then created mankind and the heavens and the earth, despite all of this, they say, when we are lost in the earth, is it possible that we're going to come back out as a new creation? It's so strange that they make that statement after the evidences that Allah has shown them from His previous creation.
قل يتوفاكم ملك الموت الذي وكل بكم ثم إلى ربكم ترجعون. Say, the angel of death who has been entrusted with you will take you, then to your Lord you will be returned.
And He will take your life. Will take your life. The angel of death is one angel. There is no evidence that the angel of death is more than one. Sahih, there are assisting angels in terms of the angels that come around a person when they die. But the one who takes the soul, there is no evidence for it being more than one. And to say it's more than one is really just, it's an example of trying to combat the wahi with your intellect. By how can it be so many people die? Like in Allah Azza wa Jal described one angel of death. The name of the angel of death, they differed over it. And some of them said, Azra'il. Like, it's not reported authentically. There's no authentic report. The authentic report is for the names of the angels is no doubt Jibreel and Mikael, and they have different versions of their names, Jibra'il and Mikael and Mikael, and Israfil is the blower of the horn. As for the angel of death, his name is not mentioned. And there is obviously Malik, the guardian of the hellfire. وَقَالُوا يَا مَالِكْ لِيَقْضِي عَلَيْنَا رَبُّكَ. So there are some names. As for Munkar and Nakir, the two in the grave, but many scholars said that's not their names, that's their description. They are Munkar and Nakir. But it could be also names of them as well. Like in the angel of death, we don't have a name for him.
ولو ترى إذ المجرمون ناكسوا رؤوسهم عند ربهم ربنا أبصرنا وسمعنا فارجعنا نعمل صالحا إنا موقنون. If you could but see when the criminals are hanging their heads before their Lord, saying, Our Lord, we have seen and heard, so return us to the world. We will work righteousness. Indeed, we are now certain.
So this is the ma'dhirah that will not be accepted. When Allah Azza wa Jal says their excuses will not be accepted, and when Allah says, وَلَا هُمْ يُسْتَعْتَبُونَ. They will not be allowed to appease Allah. This is their attempt to appease Allah. This is what they said in appeasing Allah. When they said, رَبَّنَا أَبَصَرْنَا وَسَمِعْنَا فَارْجِعْنَا نَعْمَلْ صَالِحًا إِنَّا مُوقِنُونَ. Our Lord, we've seen and heard. We've seen your evidences, we've heard your evidences. How ungrateful to say that when the messenger came to you. But now you say, now, Ya Rabb, now on the day of Qiyamah, I've seen and I've heard. فَارْجِعْنَا. Put us back. لَا هُمْ يُسْتَعْتَبُونَ. This attempt of theirs to appease Allah will never be accepted from them.
ولو شئنا لآتينا كل نفس هداها ولكن حق القول مني لأملأن جهنم من الجنة والناس أجمعين. And if we had willed, we could have given every soul its guidance, but the word from me will come into effect that I will surely fill hell with jinn and people altogether.
I mean, we could have imposed guidance on people. I forced everybody to be guided. But Allah Azza wa Jal, His word, that He said that I will certainly fill hell with all the jinn and people together. How many of men will be thrown into Jahannam? 999 humans out of every 1,000. ثبت في السنة. 999 human beings out of every 1,000 will be the inhabitants of hell. Jahannam khalidina fiha. They'll never come out of it. And only 1 in 1,000 will be from the people of Jannah. That's something to think about. Wallahu musta'an.
فذوقوا بما نسيتم لقاء يومكم هذا إنا نسيناكم وذوقوا عذاب الخلد بما كنتم تعملون. So taste punishment because you forgot the meeting of this, your day. Indeed, we have accordingly forgotten you, and taste the punishment of eternity for what you used to do.
And I prefer than forgotten for the second one. To say we have accordingly neglected you or abandoned you would be good. Because the tark fi حق الله عز وجل, the nisyan fi حق الله عز وجل is tark. When we say Allah forgot this person, it doesn't mean He didn't remember him. And it means that He abandoned him.
إنما يؤمن بآياتنا الذين إذا ذكروا بها خروا سجدا وسبحوا بحمد ربهم وهم لا يستكبرون. Only those believing in our verses who, when they are reminded by them, fall down in prostration and exalt Allah with praise of their Lord, and they are not arrogant.
I think it's another example of the strange English sentence order here. And wouldn't it make more sense to say, the only believers in our revelation are those who, the only believers are those who, when they are reminded by them, fall down in prostration and they praise Allah and declare Him free of all imperfection, and they are not arrogant. And this is the 10th place of sujood, at-tilawa in the Qur'an. And this is, wallahu alam, the ayah from which the surah took its name, Surah As-Sajdah. So the word sajdah is not mentioned like that, sajdah. Like it's the most famous sujood tilawa in the Qur'an, Allahu alam. And it's from the most, and it's the one that almost everybody, when you think about sujood tilawa, the sajdah that is named, the surah that is named after that sajdah, Surah As-Sajdah, the surah of prostration. Whereas prostration came in 15 places in the Qur'an, in terms of sujood tilawa. Like in here, Allah Azza wa Jal mentions the sign of the believers, the only people who are believers are those that when they hear and they're reminded by the ayat of Allah, they fall down in prostration. Sajda tilawa is mustahab, it's not wajib. It's mustahabba, it's not wajibah. You can't take from this ayah that it's wajibah to make sujood tilawa. because the ayah is more in general, and they fall in sajda in every aspect. They perform their salah, they do sujood al-tilawa and sujood al-shukr, but sujood tilawa is mustahabba, it's not wajibah, it's recommended.
تتجافى جنوبهم عن المضاجع يدعون ربهم خوفا وطمعا ومما رزقناهم ينفقون. Their sides part from their beds, they supplicate their Lord in fear and aspiration, and from what we have provided them they spend.
And fear and hope would be better, just to give people that, that the consistent message that they understand, fear and hope. But aspiration is fine. Aspiration is a good word. And I know the word tama'a here is different to the word, for example, raghaban. And so it's nice to have a different word for it. It's good, but I just wonder if people understand it. Their sides part, they abandon their beds, calling upon Allah Azza wa Jal, tahajjud, salat al-fajr. They get up from their beds to pray, calling upon Allah in fear and hope. And they spend out of what they have, Allah Azza wa Jal has provided for them. That's a description of those people. It's a continuation from the ayat As-Sajdah, the description of the people when they fall down from sajda, and their description is also that they wake up to pray. And it could also be that the sajda here is referring to that. The sajda is referring to the sajda that they do is the sajda they do when they wake up to pray at night, or they wake up for salat al-fajr. So this is the sajda that they do.
فلا تعلم نفس ما أخفي لهم من قرة أعين جزاء بما كانوا يعملون. And no soul knows what has been hidden for them of comfort for eyes, as reward for what they used to do.
The comfort for your eye is the satisfaction, the pleasure of your eye. I think pleasure might be better here. Like the delight of the eye or the pleasure of the eye. Nobody knows. In Jannah there is ما لا عين رأت ولا أذن سمعت ولا خطر على قلب بشر. No eye ever saw it, no ear ever heard it, and it never occurred to the mind of anyone.
أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون. Then is one who was a believer like one who is defined disobedient. They are not equal.
Before that also, the ayah previously is also an evidence with regard to women often ask. And we're always told about men in Jannah. The men, because generally the Qur'an and the khitab is to men and women. Like often men are told about something, this is for you in Jannah, or this is what you will have in Jannah, the hur al-ain, or whatever it might be. But a person has to go back to the generality of the ayah before. In the hadith of the Prophet مَا لَا عَيْنٌ رَأَتْ وَلَا أُذُنٌ سَمِعَتْ وَلَا خَطَرَ عَلَى قَلْبِ بَشَرٍ. There are things in Jannah no eye has ever seen and no ear has ever heard and nobody ever thought of. You will have qurrata ayn in Jannah. You will have everything, the best that you could ever want. But don't look and say, why did Allah tell about this for the men? Or why did Allah Azza wa Jalla encourage the men for this? For each person will have in Jannah qurrata ayn, yani that which will be pleasure for their eye. As for the ayah in which Allah Azza wa Jalla said, أَفَمَنْ كَانَ مُؤْمِنًا كَمَنْ كَانَ فَاسِقًا لَا يَسْتَوُونَ. This is a very important principle. It is not fair or right to judge believers equal to those who disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the disbelievers. The reason is that Allah's judgments and Allah's rewards, all of them are fair. What the believers get in Jannah is fair. In fact, it's actually, if anything, it's a grace from Allah that Allah gives them more than what they deserve. But between human beings, it is not every single reward of Allah is given fairly among human beings. So it's not the case that, how can it be you, a person who gave up their night to pray, the night prayer, who came to the masjid for Fajr, the person who kept away from Riba, who kept away from zina, And then you want to say, why can I not get Jannah like them? Like if you did what they did. But you didn't. Any a fasiq, a kafir. You can't put that person now and say that person deserves Jannah the same way that. And people say, why the hellfire? Why does God want to punish us? Why does God not want to enter all of us into paradise? أَفَمَنْ كَانَ مُؤْمِنًا كَمَنْ كَانَ فَاسِقًا. Do you want to say that the one who spent their life in Iman is the same as the one who spent their life in Kufr? لا يستوون. They're not the same.
أما الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات فلهم جنات المأوى نزلا بما كانوا يعملون. As for those who believed and did righteous deeds, for them will be the gardens of refuge as accommodation for what they used to do.
An accommodation, nuzulan, is what you give to your guest as a favor. And it's not, Allah Azza wa Jal gave them a blessing, a mercy because of what they used to do. It doesn't mean that what they used to do deserved Jannah. But what they used to do brought them the mercy of Allah by which they enter Jannah. That's what the meaning of nuzulan is.
وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ فَسَقُوا فَمَأْوَاهُمُ النَّارُ كُلَّمَا أَرَادُوا أَن يَخْرُجُوا مِنْهَا أُعِيدُوا فِيهَا وقيل لهم ذوقوا عذاب النار الذي كنتم به تكذبون. But as for those who defiantly disobeyed, their refuge is the fire. Every time they wish to emerge from it, they will be returned to it while it is said to them, taste the punishment of the fire which you used to deny.
And here the fasiq here is the kafir. Remember, the word fasiq sometimes comes with the meaning of kafir and sometimes comes with the meaning of a Muslim who does evil. It's not the Muslim who does evil here. The fasiq here is the kafir. And every time they want to come out from the fire, they're going to be sent back to it again. And it will be said to them, taste the punishment of the fire that you used to disbelieve in it. And that's the proof that the fasiq here is the kafir.
وَلَنُذِيقَنَّهُمْ مِنَ الْعَذَابِ الْأَدْنَى دُونَ الْعَذَابِ الْأَكْبَرِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. And will surely let them taste the nearer punishment, short of the greater punishment, that perhaps they will return.
The nearer punishment and the disasters and calamities of this world. Any hardships of this world and the minor calamities of this world. And that shows that when people ask, why is Allah, what is the benefit in the punishment of this world? It's to make you come back to Allah in tawbah. Human beings need hard times to come back in tawbah to Allah. Otherwise, any time you're given grace from Allah successively, time and time again, wallahi, unless you are the likes of Prophet Ayub, and wallahi, the reality is that human beings are like that. Except the prophets and messengers, alayhim salatu wassalam, generally, easy times bring about what? Bring about weak commitment to the deen, a lack of gratitude, transgression. Allah Azza wa Jal gives you punishments in this world, which are from al-adab, al-adna, that punishment which is minor and close. And it's to make you come back to Allah. Now someone may ask here, and there's a mas'ala which is well worth us taking a minute on it. And I highlighted it. No, I didn't highlight it in the right place. I'll highlight it in the right place. And that is the mas'ala of how do I know, is Allah testing me or punishing me or rewarding me? So, how do I know? There's three things in reality. How do I know Allah is rewarding me by trials? In other words, clearing my sins and cleansing me through trials, like the trials of the Prophet ﷺ, which are a reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How do I know that Allah Azza wa Jal is testing me? How do I know that Allah Azza wa Jal is punishing me? So this is something I want to bring you more details on it later. It was a comprehensive discussion, but I just want to highlight a few things. The first thing is, look at your response, your situation and your response. Your situation, your condition and your response. Your condition, and if you are a person who is in a state of obedience to Allah and a trial comes to you, then that is an indication that this is a trial that is there to purify you and to bring you nearer to Allah. But what can help to confirm that is, how do you behave? Is that trial bringing you close to Allah, or is that trial taking you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So the first thing you look at is, what was my condition when the trial came? All of us sin. Like in this trial, it came, and what was the condition of it? What was the condition of the people when this trial came? So someone was a disbeliever and a trial came to them. For that, no doubt, we know that trial is there as a lesser punishment to make them come back to Allah. There's no issue in that. A believer who is practicing their religion as best as they can, a trial comes to them. It's a trial, it's a test. Like you feel from this that it indicates that it's there to purify you. Like in the way that you can truly take from that is, how do you behave when the trial comes to you? And if you are behaving in a way that's bringing you nearer to Allah, then that's a sign that that trial is actually, it's actually cleansing you and benefiting you. But if that trial is taking you further away from Allah, then that is closer to being a punishment. But in reality, everything is a test. Punishments are a test. Good things are a test. Trials that cleanse you are a test. All of it is a test. For the distinguishing between the two is not necessary. That's the ultimate conclusion. You don't need to sit there and say, is this a punishment, or is this to cleanse me, or is this to... This is for you to make tawbah, whatever, and it's for you to make tawbah, for you to get near to Allah. That's what it is. Everything bad that happens to you in your life is a chance for you to make tawbah and a chance for you to get near to Allah. The aspect of punishment can be greater if you are further away, and especially if it's not bringing you back to Allah. And the aspect of forgiveness can be closer if you are nearer to Allah and it is bringing you close to Allah. But every single punishment is there as a test and a trial and an opportunity to get near to Allah. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ, so that they can come back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that doesn't also negate the sins being the reason of it. And Allah Azza wa Jal can purify a person through a trial, and still that trial could be a result of their sins. Like the believers in Uhud. The Sahaba, they're from the most beloved of the people to Allah. Allah Azza wa Jal gave them a trial because of their sins, and that trial purified them and brought them closer to Him. For there's also no reason why your sins cannot be a reason why you get a punishment, a sabab, but then the ultimate outcome of that punishment is it brings you closer to Allah. And from this, Ibn al-Qayyim said, perhaps a person might commit a sin that is better for him than 1,000 good deeds. Does that mean you should aim to do sins as much? It's not that. Like the sin is wrong. Like in the outcome of the sin is better for him than 1,000 hasana. Because it makes him make tawbah and he feels sorry for it and he changes his life. The sin is bad, but the outcome of the sin. But also distinguish between a sin and its outcome. The outcome of something may be cleansing, even though the cause of it was something evil. For all of that is from the decree of Allah and His wisdom.
ومن أظلم ممن ذكر بآيات ربه ثم أعرض عنها إنا من المجرمين منتقمون. And who is more unjust than one who is reminded of the verse of his Lord, then he turns away from them? Indeed, we from the criminals will take retribution.
Yeah. Allah's name, Allah doesn't have the name Al-Muntaqim. It's not a name of Allah. It's a sifa of Allah Azza wa Jal. Yani dhu intiqam. It's a sifa thabita lillahi Azza wa Jal. Allah is dhu intiqam. That He's swift in taking retribution, in inflicting punishment. But it's not a name of Him, because it's not here, like an absolute. And now you can, Abdurrahman, for the masjid, you can just take a pause, inshallah, for a moment. وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا مُوسَى
ولقد آتينا موسى الكتاب فلا تكن في مرية من لقائه وجعلناه هدى لبني إسرائيل. And we certainly gave Musa the scripture, so do not be in doubt over his meeting, and we made it guidance for the children of Israel.
So there's a lot of any discussion about do not be in doubt over its meeting. Yani do not be in doubt that Musa received it. That's one view. And the other view is don't be in doubt that you met Musa on the night of Al-Mi'raj. Again, the issue in Arabic over the pronouns. Yani. فَلَا تَكُنْ فِي مِرْيَةٍ مِّن لِقَائِهِ. Yani don't be in doubt of him, or don't be in doubt of meeting it or meeting him. And you don't be in doubt that you're also receiving revelation, or don't be in doubt that you met Musa in al-Isra wal-Mi'raj.
وجعلنا منهم أئمة يهدون بأمرنا لما صبروا وكانوا بآياتنا يوقنون. And we made from among them leaders guiding by our command when they were patient and when they were certain of our signs.
Now, this is very important. What made them leaders? How did they become a'imma, any guiding examples for the people? What are the two things mentioned here? What are the two things mentioned here? Yaqeen and sabr. Yaqeen and sabr. For this is also worth, wallahi, there's some very, very valuable, Ibn al-Qayyim has a very, very valuable commentary on it, if I'm not mistaken. But here, As-Sa'di rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, we made from Bani Israel ulama, scholars, who were guided and guided other people. The book that was sent down to them was guidance, and those people, the believers in them came into two groups. Those who were a'imma and those who were followers, leaders and followers. Those people who were guided were into two groups, those who were leading them and those who were following them. Those who were leading them are the highest level of people after prophethood, and the level of the Siddiqeen. And they only became from the Siddiqeen because of their patience in learning and teaching and giving da'wah, and patience in what happened to them on the path, and the fact that they held themselves back from sins and from being overcome by their desires. And they reached a level of iman in the ayat of Allah that they had the level of yaqeen, which is al-ilm al-tam al-mujib lil-amal, complete knowledge that causes you to act. And they reached that because they learned in the proper way, and they took knowledge from its sources that led them to the level of yaqeen. And that, wallahi, what he said is, there's more than that, but that is very profound. He says that this ayah came with regard to the virtue of the ulama after the prophets, alayhimus salatu wassalam. And that the ulama, they came at the highest level after the level of prophethood, because they inherited from the prophets. They were the people who guided them, they were guided and they guided others. And the reason they did that is because of as-sabr. And as-sabr comes into 4 masail. The sabr they had comes into 4 masail as we take from Surah Al-Asr. The first is sabr in getting knowledge. The second is sabr in implementing knowledge. The third is sabr in teaching knowledge to the people. And the fourth is sabr in what happens to you, the harms that come to you when you do that. And because of the sabr and the correctness of who they took their knowledge from, they took it from the ulama, they took it from the prophets ﷺ and the scholars before them. Because of that, they reached certainty, which meant that their actions were based upon knowledge. So they gathered between sabr and between yaqeen.
إن ربك هو يفصل بينهم يوم القيامة فيما كانوا فيه يختلفون. Indeed, your Lord will judge between them on the day of resurrection concerning that of which they used to differ.
Also, As-Sa'di rahimahullah ta'ala, he said something profound in the previous ayah. فَالصَّبْرُ وَالْيَقِينُ تُنَالُ الْإِمَامَةِ فِي الدِّينِ. Sabr and yaqeen, this is how you become an imam in the religion. An imam عند أهل السنة. For how أهل السنة, an imam, a great scholar who is an example for the people, this only comes through as-sabr wal-yaqeen. Then the children of Israel differed among themselves. After these guiding, and the followers differed. Some of them followed these guiding leaders and others didn't. Some of them followed the prophets and others didn't. So Allah Azza wa Jalla will judge between them Yawm al-Qiyamah in that which they differed all after the knowledge came to them.
أولم يهد لهم كم أهلكنا من قبلهم من القرون يمشون في مساكنهم إن في ذلك لآيات أفلا يسمعون. Has it not become clear to them how many generations we destroyed before them? As they walk among their dwellings, indeed in that are signs, then do they not hear? أولم يروا أنا نسوق الماء إلى الأرض الجرز فنخرج به زرعا تأكل منه أنعامهم وأنفسهم أفلا يبصرون. Have they not seen that we drive water in clouds to barren land and bring forth thereby crops from which their livestock eat and they themselves, then do they not see?
So the first set of signs they were asked to think about is the destruction of the people. They were asked to think about the signs that exist in the destruction of Ad and Thamud and the people of Lut. And then after that, they're asked to look at the barren land that brings out crops that the livestock eat from. And this is a proof for the resurrection. And that's why the next ayah came with regard to the resurrection.
وَيَقُولُونَ مَتَى هَذَا الْفَتْحُ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. And they say, when will be this conquest, if you should be truthful?
So here the word fath is, I would rather translate it as decision rather than, it can mean conquest, it means both. But here it's more likely the context of the ayat is when will be the day of judgment? When will be this fath, and the final decision between us? Like in the fath also can be a conquest. But it seems more, the more correct way to translate it here would be to translate as when will be this final decision, this day of decision? When will be this day of decision if you should be truthful? Or if you are truthful.
قل يوم الفتح لا ينفع الذين كفروا إيمانهم ولا هم ينظرون. Say, O Muhammad, on the day of conquest, the belief of those who had disbelieved will not benefit them, nor will they be reprieved.
And that's why it means the day of resurrection. So I think conquest sounds too much like conquest of Makkah. It should be made as the day of decision. The day when Allah Azza wa Jal will break al-fath, he will, like the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, رَبَّنَا افتح بيننا وبين قوم, the ayah, رَبَّنَا افتح بيننا. O Allah, separate between us, judge between us decisively, between us and our people in truth.
فأعرض عنهم وانتظر إنهم منتظرون. So turn away from them and wait. Indeed, they are waiting.
Now I was thinking about the ayah رَبَّنَا افتح بيننا وبين قومنا بالحق وأنت خير الفاتحين, Surah Al-A'raf, in ayah number 89. That's the meaning that's consistent here. So the Prophet is to turn away from them, and you don't go down to their level, don't engage with them like that. And wait. And they're also waiting. That brings us to the end of Surah As-Sajdah. Surah As-Sajdah, the sunnah is to read it in the Fajr of Jumu'ah in the first rak'ah. Aside from Abdurrahman, who I know knows this answer, what's the second surah that you read? Surah Al-Insan. هل أتى على الإنسان. For some of the narrations say, كان يواظب على ذلك. The Prophet ﷺ used to regularly, every single Fajr, in the Jumu'ah, day of Jumu'ah, he would read. And some of them weakened the narration that he used to do it every time. Like, many of them agreed with it. The narration, كان يواظب على ذلك. He used to regularly, consistently, in every Fajr, he used to read it. But I think that's a good place for us to stop. I know we stopped with less than the juz that we were supposed to do, like we would have done this morning. And in other words, like we stopped, I would say, realistically, any 8 or so pages short of where we would have wanted to be. But I'm kind of conscious that we will need extra sessions anyway, inshallah, to finish this. Like in the last 10 days, along with the qiyam and everything, and then along with the fact that we might have to finish after 29 days instead of 30, we're going to need extra sessions to finish. But we'll try to squeeze those in maybe towards the weekend. We'll see how we're doing. If we need to like extend a couple of days and have like some longer days where we have like a double session, a morning session, or like a late morning session as well, we can do that later on. But for now, let's just keep going, trying to aim it around the juz. If we're a little bit short, it's okay. And then we'll see by the end of the week, by Saturday, Sunday, are we really far away or not? And if we kind of have an option to add a few classes in before Eid, we'll try to do that to finish the Qur'an, inshallah ta'ala, before the day of Eid, inshallah. هذا والله أعلم والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.